Good evening, everyone. This is March 15th, 2022. This is a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council prior to our regularly scheduled meeting in March, the second meeting that is. And so our special meeting now starts at 5:30 p.m. Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
And I'm here. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. All right, so the special meeting is comprised of a single study session item. The subject is to consider options for the West Coast Farmers Market location at a city park. The West Coast Farmers Market had been located in the Oaks Shopping Center, but of course that's now subject to a new development. It had moved and we were using Memorial Park for a while, but or at least part of the parking lot adjoining it. And so at this point, we are exploring options. And Mr. City Manager, Jim Troop, would you like to introduce the staff presenter for this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself. Yes, today's presenter is going to be Rochelle Saunders, our Assistant Director for Parks Recreation.
Great. Thanks, Jim, and welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you. Share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rochelle Sander, and I am the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. Tonight's study session will review city park options for the West Coast Farmers Market. The agenda tonight includes the background on the history of the West Coast Farmers Market, information on 4 park sites on the west side of Cupertino for consideration, and a recommended action. Cupertino has 2 popular farmers markets serving the community. These include the Friday Farmers Market at Creekside Park, organized by Pacific Coast Farmers Market Association, and the Sunday Farmers Market, formerly at the Oaks Shopping Center, organized by the West Coast Farmers Market Association. Since the Oaks Shopping Center site is no longer available as a farmers market venue, the West Coast Farmers Market was temporarily relocated to the Senior Center Memorial Park parking lot until June 1st of 2021, while it identified a permanent location for its market. The West Coast Farmers Market Agreement for temporary relocation was brought to City Council on January 19th of 2021 for approval. Since the initial agreement was approved, there have been 4 amendments to extend the Memorial Park location. Due to the pandemic, Memorial Park was not being used for normal weekend park use, including senior center rentals, large Quinlan Senior rentals, softball field rentals, festivals, summer events, picnic gatherings, and more. Therefore, Memorial Park has been available for the farmers market during this time. However, as we begin to reopen Memorial Park for normal use, the Memorial Park Senior Center parking lot is no longer feasible for a farmers market. Staff has been working to assess the feasibility of park locations that could accommodate the West Coast Farmers Market on the west side of Cupertino. Cupertino has 10 parks on the west side of De Anza Boulevard, 1 dog park, 5 neighborhood parks with little to no parking, and 4 larger neighborhood parks with parking lots and restroom facilities. The 4 larger parks are Memorial, Jollyman, Linda Vista, and Monte Vista parks. In this photo of Memorial Park, the green circle is where the farmers market currently sets up. The red circles are where the first capital improvement project, the pond repurposing, will focus. Memorial Park houses tennis courts, a softball field, an amphitheater, 2 playgrounds, public restrooms, and a large picnic site. It is one of the most popular and well-utilized parks in Cupertino. The park is home to large community events such as festivals, concerts, movies, and Shakespeare in the Park. The parking lots are also shared by the Cupertino Senior Center and Quinlan Community Center. Rentals at these buildings are popular on the weekends, and parking will frequently overflow into both parking lots. Memorial Park has been available for the farmers market during the pandemic since normal city operations were not in full swing. However, during this period when the West Coast Farmers Market was temporarily located in Memorial Park, Parks and Recreation staff have received complaints from tennis and softball players due to lack of parking on Sundays. Code enforcement staff have received complaints due to traffic congestion. Public Works staff have observed trash bags left outside the receptacles and produce being left in the parking lot and adjacent landscaped areas. Residents have also raised concerns related to noise level, inadequate parking, and emergency vehicle access. In addition, there are 3 current capital improvement projects planned for Memorial Park that will span multiple years of construction. The pond repurposing project will begin construction this spring, with anticipated parking lot impacts due to construction staging. The main advantages to holding the farmers market at the Memorial Park Senior Center parking lot is that it offers a sufficiently large venue, which can be seen from Stevens Creek. Large Memorial Park festivals impact the Senior Center Memorial parking lot through the Monday after their event due to event staging and equipment pickup. Based on the 2022 large event and festival dates, 14 to 16 Sundays, depending on when holidays fall, would be unavailable for the farmers market. Memorial Park picnic rentals tend to be large corporate parties, reunions, and events that bring a couple hundred attendees. The grass space in front of the picnic area is included in picnic rentals and allows for bounce houses and other sports equipment to be set up. The amphitheater also holds a couple hundred people and can be rented for large events. In this photo, the green circle is the parking lot at Jollyman Park. The red circle is the area in which the all-inclusive playground CIP will focus. Jollyman Park houses a dog off-leash area, a baseball field, a half basketball court, 2 playgrounds, soccer fields, public restrooms, and drop-in picnic areas. This location also has a current capital improvement project to build an all-inclusive playground. Parking may be impacted by construction due to the parking lot possibly being used for construction staging. Jollyman Park's current use is heavy during the weekends, and the park only has 1 parking lot. In this photo of Linda Vista Park, the green circle is the parking lot. Linda Vista Park houses 2 playgrounds, a fitness area, a large rentable picnic area, public restrooms, and first come, first served picnic areas. The park also has a parking lot that could accommodate the farmers market. However, it's located within a residential area with less traffic and visibility than the other parks. Linda Vista Park only has 1 parking lot, and parking for large events at the park regularly spills onto the neighborhood streets. In this photo of Monte Vista Park, the green circle is the parking lot. Monte Vista Park houses tennis courts, 2 playgrounds, and 2 softball fields. The park offers 1 parking lot, and there is street parking surrounding it. The park faces the well-traveled Foothill Boulevard and offers fencing for farmers market marketing banners facing the road. Monte Vista Park has a recreation center with restrooms open to the public 7 days a week. The location is also close to major freeways, allowing easy access for visitors. Although the parking lot configuration is not optimal for the farmers market due to its shape, it is adequate as it only offers a couple fewer spaces than Memorial Park. In summary, Memorial, Jollyman, Linda Vista, and Monte Vista Parks are the only city parks on the west side of Cupertino with parking lots that are large enough to accommodate the farmers market. However, Memorial Park and Jollyman Park have large multi-year CIPs planned that will limit the availability of parking. In addition, Memorial Park has events, programs, and rentals scheduled on Sundays that will preclude the farmers market from occurring. Linda Vista Park has a sufficiently large parking lot, but is not highly visible from well-traveled roads. Monte Vista Recreation Center has only 1 parking lot, but the park has street parking on all 4 sides and is located on a well-traveled road. The current agreement with West Coast Farmers Market Association expires on April 24th for their current location at Memorial Park Senior Center parking lot. Thank you for your time. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. Before we go to questions and comments from council, let's go ahead and open this up to our members of the public. And to our members of the public, if you'd like to speak on this special meeting study session item, please raise your hand in the Zoom function. And I will also ask the city clerk if there were any emails that arrived after we go to our live speakers. I do see 1 hand raised. That is from a person labeled San Rao, as well as now from Rebecca Smith and Nori. And so please have your hand raised before the first speaker is concluded speaking. We'll have 3 minutes. It seems a reasonable allocation of time given our regular meeting starting time is 6:45. That's in a little bit over an hour. And so, San Rao, please begin. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of the City Council. I'm extremely grateful to the city for the opportunity to raise the CUSD item Agenda 12 on the agenda for the council. The city of Cupertino is intimately tied to the Cupertino Union School District because property values in Cupertino are associated with the
Mr.
cost
Rao,
of education.
this is not public comment for oral communications, nor is it the item 12 that you apparently want to speak on. And so I'm going to refer you to that on our regular agenda. This is the special meeting regarding the location of the Pacific, the West Coast Farmers Market, rather. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to our next speaker. And our next speaker will be considered the first speaker. That will be Rebecca Smith. And the hands that I have raised are from Rebecca, Nori, and Andy. And so welcome, Rebecca. You'll have 3 minutes. And I'm getting a message, a pop-up window on my computer that Allow to Talk is not available because Rebecca Smith is using an older version of Zoom. You need to promote Rebecca Smith to a panelist to talk. And so Rebecca, you now don't have your hand raised anymore. Okay, but someone promoted you. So let me go ahead and ask you to unmute. Welcome, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mayor Paul, Vice Mayor Chow, City Council members. I'm Becky Smith, a 35-year resident of Cupertino. My husband Andy and I have been gleaning produce from the West Coast market since the second half of 2014. We did not start this effort. Teresa loved fruits and vegetables and wanted to provide fresh produce to people in need. She learned that farmers market vendors have a Wednesday through Sunday work week. Much of the produce they don't sell on Sunday is fed to animals or composted. She visited Sunday markets and found Steve and Jerry at West Coast Market. They liked her idea and encouraged their vendors to donate. Teresa needed help. She called churches, and our church called me. Teresa gleaned with a small group and hauled the produce in her car. Each week we got more produce, and we added my Previa as transport. First, we delivered to Our Daily Bread in Sunnyvale, but soon we gleaned more than they could use. Then we delivered to City Team Ministries, but once we showed up with 2 vehicles of produce and they wouldn't take it. We needed a new partner, and Dale suggested West Valley Community Services. They could provide a truck and help with volunteers. That was the beginning of 2015. Soon we had a core team of 6. We kept getting more produce, and just in time, Rotary donated a walk-in refrigerator to West Valley so we could refrigerate our haul. We got more produce, and just in time, Second Harvest provided West Valley with a box truck that held what we collected. In the summer of 2019, we had a few weeks where we collected over 4,000 pounds, and just in time to save our backs, West Valley sent us the Young Men's Service League, an organization of moms and strong sons who do community service together. They send 6 to 10 volunteers a week. Our group has gleaned every Sunday except the first Sunday of the summer of 2019. Lots of volunteers stepped away during COVID. But the market stayed.
Rebecca, unfortunately,
Employees helped. Our daughters have been so generous. We walked. Can you hear me?
your audio was choppy for about 20 seconds there. And so why don't you finish your comments?
Okay. They say take everything on those 3 tables. Amazing generosity. 650,000 pounds of broccoli, onions, daikon radishes, bok choy, apples, persimmons, and more. I urge you to find a good location for this market. Be creative. Parks are not the only option. City employees have studied every square foot of Cupertino for housing. They might have an idea. If Jerry and Steve can't make it work at Monte Vista Park, Cupertino will lose a significant asset. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And so our next speaker is Nori, followed by Andy. And our last speaker on this item will be Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Nori.
Sorry. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Park and Recreation, and City Manager, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Memorial Park parking lot on Alvis across Commons is not recommended by Park and Recreation at this time. Thank you for taking consideration of our residents. If West Coast Farmers Market move to the parking lot on Alvis, 1, potential noise level, traffic congestion on Alvis, especially with traffic, trucks unload and load, generator running, car moving in and out on every Sunday throughout the year. 2, the parking lot is already overflowing and many cars lined up on Alvis on Sunday. 3, this traffic congestion on the street may cause safety issue if emergency vehicles from getting through to this complex quickly. 4, people more likely park in the Commons parking lot and or shortcut to Stevens Creek. 5, it may also impact our security if many strangers drive or walk in the complex. West Coast Farmers Market is a big organization who opens in 11 cities. They have option to the location in Cupertino or any other cities, but we residents in the Commons do not have the options. We own the house, live here for many years, and pay property tax. Some residents live here for over 30 years. There are many children and babies in this complex. Please consider the alternative location if you would like to keep the West Coast Farmers Market in Cupertino. For instance, on Mary Avenue along 85 Wall to the dog park area, Mary Avenue is wide, long, and less traffic street. Many farmers market in other cities, such as Sunnyvale, Los Altos, Campbell, or Palo Alto, are on the street, not parking lot. Also, no Westport construction traffic on Sunday, or no residential area on Bob Road, or share the creek side park with Pacific Coast Farmers Market on Friday and West Coast Farmers Market on Sunday. Thank you very much for listening, and we really appreciate your continued support.
Thank you, Nori. Our next speaker is Andy. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you. My name is Andy DeBates, and my wife Becky and I have been working with Steve in the farmers market for the last 7 years. Thank you, Mayor Paul and council members for listening to my comments. And Kirsten, thank you for going through my slides. We volunteer and organize volunteers to get the donated produce from the farmers market to West Valley. This amounts to 10 volunteers, 2 hours every Sunday, and moving between 1,000 and 4,000 pounds of produce over into West Valley. Next slide. This slide shows the total amount that the farmers market has donated over the years to West Valley. The farmers have been very generous, donating over 650,000 pounds of produce to the West Valley Pantry. If you value that produce at $1.50 a pound, that's $1 million into the West Valley Pantry. Next slide, please. Okay, I also drive the West Valley box truck for this work. And there's a potential issue I want to highlight with the largest trucks that the farmers have. The farmers have a collection of trucks. There are 3 very large trucks, also 3 large box trucks, and then a larger number of small box trucks like mine, or pickup trucks and vans. And it's the three very large trucks that I'm concerned about. Next slide. Specifically, getting the biggest trucks in and out of the proposed new space is the issue that I'm worried about. The largest trucks correspond to the largest booths, and these largest booths anchor the farmers markets just like a Target store anchors a shopping center. So if we can't support the large booths, it will weaken the market overall. Next slide. This is a picture of Memorial Park. In the upper right, there's a little red rectangle that represents one of these large trucks. And then notice there's also a turnaround loop in the Memorial Park parking lot down in the lower left. Next slide, please. Okay, now this is a picture of Monte Vista, and again, the Monte Vista Park. And again, the red rectangles represent one of the three largest trucks. And for the three largest trucks, there really is no turnaround area. The width of the entrance is 5 feet narrower than the Memorial parking lot. And so it's for the largest trucks, it's unclear to me if it's actually possible to enter and exit parking lot that's being proposed. And certainly the trucks would not be able to maneuver within.
Thank you, Andy. Stay on because I think that council might have some follow-up questions for you. So thanks very much.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Hi, it's Kirsten. I believe that Andy also had his wife on the line that wished to speak with him. I don't know if he made that announcement at the beginning.
I did not see that hand raised, but
I just wanted to let you know.
Let me go ahead and unmute Andy at this point. So Andy, did you email asking to speak on this item to me earlier today? I'm sorry, I got a flood of literally hundreds of emails, but
I was, so Kristen, Becky, who spoke earlier, that's my wife. So we ended up coming in.
Got it.
And Mayor Paul, no, I did not email you. I was connected to Kirsten, so I sent my information to her.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was actually item 10 now that I think about it. But yeah, please stay on. I think we might have some follow-ups from council. So thanks very much. Our next and final public speaker on this item is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. It's obvious that it's critical to save this farmers market and to continue having it in Cupertino. And the big trucks and the parking and the accessibility, I was wondering if there's that old Pizza Hut building near Dish Dash. Could there be an agreement with the property owners or the surrounding their parking there? It might overflow into Staples or Dish Dash or behind, but maybe that would be possible. Or if there's a company that doesn't work on Sunday, maybe they have a big parking lot. Or, well, it doesn't work if they need to do it on Sunday. Anyway, those are some thoughts. There's got to be a place, and the closing a street for a certain number of hours. I think that might be acceptable if it's, I don't know. It sounds like it's very critical to keep this farmers market, and we should do everything you can to find a place. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Peggy. And I'll bring this back to council. I'm going to go ahead with leave. I'm interested in hearing the rest of what Andy was describing. And so, Andy, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone. If you could, please be succinct about it, of course, but finish your comment.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. Kirsten, if you could go to just the very last slide. I was almost at the end, Mayor. No, I'm sorry, not the backup slides. That one right there. So this just showed an additional detail at Monte Vista. If you had street parking in here, the green rectangles represent cars, and again, the red rectangle represents one of these large trucks, there's also an additional issue that if you had, you'd have to prevent parking close to the entrance, because cars that were parked near the entrance would make the potential issue of getting that large truck in and out obviously even more difficult. So I've driven through this parking. I drive the small box truck. I've driven through this Monte Vista parking lot a couple of times in the last few days. Certainly, it would be I strongly believe that the largest trucks are only going to be able, if they can get in, they're going to only be able to operate in that upper left third of the parking space, and they would have to kind of back in and back out, if they can get in at all. The rest of the space they will not be able to use. They're the next size down trucks, the medium sized trucks, probably can navigate the rest of the space, but it's really the biggest trucks are the ones that I'm worried about, and those are the biggest booths and have some of the best produce at the farmers market.
Got it. Appreciate it. And Andy, can you remind us? Are you a resident? Are you closely affiliated with the farmers market?
So I'm a 35-year resident. I'm married to Becky Smith, who spoke earlier. So we work on this together. And her story, I've been, kind of part of that all along.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, are you speaking on behalf of the vendors in terms of their perspective as to whether their trucks would fit? Or is it, a well-intentioned observation, a set of observations from yourself? Where are you gleaning this set of observations regarding truck size and so forth?
Well, I've volunteered with the farmers market, gathering the produce for.
Okay, understood. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your elaboration on those comments. Let me go to our city manager at this.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Muted myself. Jim, I know you probably have a couple of follow-ups there. Let me also preface this by asking you about the De Anza College location, because I know that's what you were looking at previously, but I haven't had time to interface with you on that relatively recently. So, Jim, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Mayor and Council. So, and let me know if my speakers, my microphone's having issues. Let me know if I'm fading around. Good. The De Anza College, there is going to be they're working on bringing back the old flea market that used to be there. That is a monthly, once a month. So that didn't fix all of the issues, even though it would be a great place. There would be some additional costs. I didn't get into the details with the college on what that would be for the owners of the part of the Westwood Farmers Market. But that is a potential there for him to talk to the college about that part of it. Being a city manager, I need to point out that this is a private for-profit entity, and I love farmers markets. I've actually gone to this one a number of times since I've been here. But we have been giving them a considerable amount of staff time to do all of this research for this company. And I think going forward, we need to be cautious of how much time we're putting in as a city to a private entity. We have a location for them that we're offering essentially without charge at Monte Vista. That's the one we're thinking would be the best out of all the locations. From a staff perspective, we don't have, one of the speakers said, well, what about the old Pizza Hut cider? That would be up to the owner of the market to go do that part of it versus having staff go out and do that. We wouldn't do that for other businesses. So I just need to make sure we understand it is a private entity, it is for profit. The staff has been doing much more than we've done for other businesses at this point, I would say. So I just want to make sure the council is aware of that. We do have a location. The location that we're currently letting them stay in does have a lot of restrictions, especially going forward with the remodel of Memorial Park, with all the equipment that's going in there and the different events that are going on. So I just want to make sure we look at everything in a a bigger scale than just this one particular market. So, thank you.
Got it. And thank you, Jim, for those comments. And I will say, yes, we can hear a little bit of the kind of speaker issues there. So maybe, during a break to reset, or maybe it's just an ongoing speaker thing. So let me go to, let me speak to those comments first. And first of all, I know that, I speak on behalf of council when I extend our appreciation to staff for their work on this. It is a beloved, farmers market. A lot of people go there. We're very grateful to the Oaks Shopping Center and the prior owner of that for, very, very graciously allowing usage. But of course, we're a public entity, and we're not in the business of necessarily brokering, kind of private to private deals with regard to, that kind of space. But, we certainly done what we can in, this situation to see what public spaces are available. And so I would be very much interested in hearing what thoughts of my fellow council members are. I will point out that, given the fact that we do have significant amounts of capital improvements happening throughout our park spaces, it may well be that a move would not necessarily be permanent. But let me see what my fellow council members think about what the options presented in front of us this evening are, and what our thoughts are here, and any follow-up questions. So Vice Mayor Chow, let's start with you. And then Vice Mayor, you'll need to unmute your microphone, and then we'll go to Councilmember Woolley after you.
Okay, I thought other people had their hands up first.
They did put the hands forward, and so if you want Councilmember Woolley to go first, his hand.
Okay, I can go. So, so De Anza College couldn't work because they have the once a month flea market. I guess my question is also, I understand it's a for-profit entity, but are we competing with other cities for their Sunday farmers market? So we know where we stand. Maybe they have many other alternative locations to consider, and we are trying to get that so that we can provide that service for our city. Do we know where we stand with this company? Seems they didn't even send a rep here. Are they?
Mayor,
They don't really care about the Cupertino location. Maybe.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Let me, so I'm sorry, Kirsten, did you want to
yes,
speak?
I didn't know when an appropriate time to interrupt was, but Jerry Lammy and Steve Schmidt would like to speak, if possible, on behalf of the farmers market. Yes.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, I think we can make that part of our questions at this point. So, Jerry and Steve, are they in the panelist area or in the attendees area?
Both in the attendees section.
Okay, so let me go ahead and find them. So, Jerry, I'll go ahead and move you to a panelist. And Steve, Steve Schmidt, did you say?
Yes, Steve Schmidt.
I don't see a Steve in the...
They may be together. They may be on the same phone line.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and, so Jerry, you're a panelist now. If you have Steve with you, you can go ahead and unmute. Welcome. And so Vice Mayor Chow is just asking a question with regard to, competitive opportunities, I guess, that your farmers market might have, and I assume other jurisdictions. Did you want to speak to that? I'm not actually seeing Jerry with a camera on or unmuted. So,
can you hear me? This is Jerry Lamy.
Welcome, Jerry.
Your speaker is not working. Please check your connection.
We can hear you, Jerry, but if
Join
you're
the meeting.
Yeah.
Hi, can anybody hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. I guess the question is, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello.
Can anybody hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
No, come on, please don't do this.
Oh, sorry. It sounds like a technological issue with regard to the volume on your
Where's
side.
Microsoft getting involved in this?
So let's do this.
Okay.
Jerry, I realize
Should I
Hi,
finish
can anybody
my-
hear us?
We can hear you, yes.
It says mute.
Okay. So let me go ahead and have Vice Mayor open her comments back up and conclude with her initial questions and comments.
Yeah, maybe if the staff has their phone number, can try and contact them to resolve the technical issue. I'll
Hello?
just take the time to finish my comment.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
It's not working, please.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and mute because obviously they have volume issues. So go ahead, Vice Mayor.
So besides De Anza College, I wonder how about the parking lot at Blackberry Golf Course? Would that be large enough? And yeah, how about closing a street?
Oh.
I think Saratoga and Campbell close their downtown
It's
street
not working. Check your connection.
for farmers market too. And then, yeah, how about other companies like Peggy mentioned Pizza Hut or Staple and or any companies that might, but at first I thought church, but Sunday morning will be harder for church. Then the question is, does it have to be Sunday morning? Could they work with other Sundays? So maybe a church parking lot will be a possibility. Thank you.
Okay. I see Joanne McGreeny, our Director of Parks and Rec, is here.
Can you hear us?
Jerry, we can hear you, but can you hear us?
We were having some problems.
Hi, this is
Okay,
Jerry Lamy. How you doing, Mayor?
I'm doing well, thank you. Okay, so let's back up to Vice Mayor Chow's first question. Jerry, welcome. And her first question was, do you have other opportunities besides in Cupertino to place your farmers market as part of our set of considerations here?
Do we have other locations?
Other potential opportunities so that we can just understand the scope of the subject matter at this point. We of course appreciate your presence in Cupertino, but my understanding of the Vice Mayor's question was whether we're kind of, so to speak, competing against other jurisdictions for your organization's presence each week.
No, sir, not at all. We currently operate. Cupertino is my biggest and most loved market. We've been there since 2010. We have over 3,000 signatures in support from the residents of the area, and everybody loves it there. The produce that is sold there is amazing. There are truckloads upon truckloads. If I were to try to ask for an alternate location, I would love City Council to consider Torrey Avenue in front of City Hall on a Sunday, which could be a street closure. And then the parking lot for the library and City Hall could be utilized for parking. I've been out there on Sunday mornings, and it's very, very quiet in that area. To be honest with you, we really appreciate everything the staff has done to try to suggest the 4 other smaller parks, but there is just not adequate parking. We have upwards of 7,000 residents that attend the Sunday market on a weekly basis. I myself do not believe there is any other event in Cupertino that is better attended. I know that Councilman Wiley has done a phenomenal job in coming out and visiting the market and seeing what's going on. You yourself said that you had attended while we've been at the Cupertino Oaks. And if you look at the size of the parking lot of Memorial Park, it's the same size and structure that we had over in the Cupertino Oaks. I heard Rachel say that in the past that there was some problems with softball parking. Softball hasn't been played for the better part of the last 2 years. And the first week that we were there, we asked them to move their cars to the other side, which they did with no problem. We work very, very well with all the community staff out there, and there's never been any problem with trash. So We have a phenomenal home in Memorial Park. We're there from 9 to 1. By 2 o'clock, everybody's gone, and the park normally does not get busy until 2:30 or 3 with people coming to barbecue and have their picnics. So Memorial Park is a phenomenal location. It's you know, our farmers market, West Coast Farmers Market, is 2 to 3 times the size of the Pacific Coast Farmers Market that's on Friday. And so I don't know how.
Well, Jerry, thanks very much. Let me go ahead and move to our city staff at this point. I'm glad we were able to get the technical difficulties resolved, and hopefully we can, figure something out that works. But let's go to Joanne and then Jim. And so what we'll do is please address Vice Mayor Chow's questions and comments, and then we'll go on to Councilmember Willie. Director McGreeny.
Sure, great. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to address the parking lot out at Blackberry Farm Golf Course. Sunday is one of our most popular days, and so we wouldn't want to impact the usership for that facility. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday tends to be our most utilized day out at the golf course. So I just wanted to address that one point. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joanne. And Jim, did you have anything to add and follow up to the Vice Mayor's points?
Yeah, well, one, I think if I correct me if I'm wrong, but one of them was about the private property. And again, I mentioned that earlier, was that would be up to this, the owner to go out and actually talk to whomever it would be it the Pizza Hut, or if it happened to be a church or synagogue or something, that would be on to the owner. Any closure of any city streets would absolutely entail a cost to the city that we would then have to bill that out for that. As we reopen as a community, I think we're going to see even more people at the parking lot in the library section. We're actually moving how we park our city cars, the ones that the city owns, to another location just to open up the parking lot there for others. If you go there on the weekends, it's very busy. It hasn't been at the moment because of all the COVID restrictions, but it is getting busier. And then with the library grand opening, that should bring more people out. I think the best one for me, if I was going to put forth anything, would be for them to talk to the college at the Anza and look at using their very large parking area. It's big. I've already talked to some people there. They said, yes, that would be something they could look at. There would be some costs involved, but if it is the largest one in the city, then or in the area, that would be something that I'm sure could be covered by whatever profit they might bring in. But anyways, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Troop. Let's go on to Councilmember Willie, and next after John, we'll go to Councilmember Moore. All right, Councilmember Willie.
Okay, so I'll start by saying thank you, staff, for all your efforts and what you've been able to do. I also want to start by saying thank you, Farmers Market. Yes, I've heard from a lot of people that this is an important staple for them in our community. And should we lose it, I think it would be very tough to reestablish something where everybody understands the hours, things of that nature. Can it go to other locations? Sure. So with that being said, a few other noteworthy things is, it's kind of seeming like we're up against a wall. I appreciate that Parks and Rec needs to do work at Memorial Park, and I'm a big pusher for, getting that work going for Memorial Park. Dead ponds for 8 years is too much. But over the past year, I've been asking for this study session so that we can try and find location options. And I've been held at bay by the previous city manager, in fact, even the interim city manager. So the fact that we're up against a wall right now, I don't think it's quite fair. I don't think it's fair to the farmers market, and I don't think it's really fair to us on the city council. I think we do need to have more time to consider these possible options, of which, you know, they've been mentioned tonight. And so I think it is very possible that we will need to bring this back to us after these other locations have been further studied. I think I'll leave it at that for right now. Let me hear what the other council members have to say, and then maybe I'll have a few more comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Willie. Let's go to Councilmember Moore at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I'm really curious about the De Anza area. There is a really large parking lot, as you mentioned, and I'm concerned about the traffic because I'm now hearing it's 2 to 3 times larger than the Creekside Market, and that generates quite a bit of traffic. And I'm hearing 7,000 residents. So to me, that means we need a location which is able to handle that much traffic coming in and out, which makes me first think De Anza is probably the best choice. And might want to reach out to the Board of Trustees President, Patrick Aarons, for that. He has in the past expressed interest in having the campus be more open to the public on the weekends. So perhaps there is something that could be negotiated there. Or perhaps, I don't know if you could do something with Monte Vista High School, but they have to have so much traffic come through there because of their student body. I don't know if that is a potential location, but I'm thinking in terms of which one of these spaces has that much volume of traffic going through regularly, and that would, to me, would be the wisest place to relocate to. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Well, I don't see any further hands at this point. I would very much like to reach an accommodation here. Vice Mayor Chow, you do have your hand up, but let me go ahead and make some comments before following up. And Councilmember Way, I see your hand is raised for the first time, so I'll go to you first before we go back to Vice Mayor Chow. You know, my comment at this point is that it does seem that from the staff report, I would say there's probably a preferred option. It looks like Monte Vista, but you know, the limitation in space, I think probably, you know, is something that's a serious consideration, not just with regard to the facilities, but the number of people that we might be looking at, and you know, a relatively more neighborhood-oriented park off of Foothill Expressway. But you know, I'm kind of inclined to. You know, and I don't want to create too many subcommittees, but, you know, I'm inclined to perhaps empower a couple of our council members to go forward and try to work with the community staff, the, you know, the farmers market to try to figure out where it might work. And let me get a quick follow-up detail. So is the farmers market happening in Memorial Park on a weekly basis right now? And we're basically looking for, so what will happen on this date when it ends, or when will it end in Memorial Park? Have we set that date at this point? And Jim, you have your hand raised. Did you?
Yes, Joanna or Sheila jump in too, but no, we extended the contract already to give more time for this discussion to come forward. And I can't remember, Joanna or Michelle, is this the last iteration?
April 24th is currently when the amendment expires, and that's due to the fact that festivals are starting that next weekend.
Right. So April, about about a week more than that. Okay. So it does seem, you know, fairly impending. We do have another regular council meeting before then. In fact, another 2, but let me go to Councilmember Way at this point. Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So I have a couple of questions. Is this, I know the farmers market is very important for our neighborhood, and also, you know, West Valley Community Services do benefit from it, and our, you know, needy family benefit from it. But is this a for-profit organization? because I feel that our staff is really doing yeoman's job to try to find a place, and it seems they're just not a match. Is there a place like the Anza College that I think that's an ideal place if they're willing to work with this farmers market directly and make a deal just like the flea market. I think that would be real ideal. I'm with Councilmember Moore, worried about the traffic and the parking, and Monte Vista Park seems to be the most place we can find, but it's limited parking is in the neighborhood. So is there any way they could collaborate with the Anza College and work something out as a independent nonprofit organization without a for-profit organization without our staff spending so much time? So maybe Mayor Paul's suggestion to have a couple council members work on this would be good too. Because I know we're short of staff and we are having a lot of work done on this thing. We do want to provide resident service. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Way. And, I will note that April 5th is our next regular council meeting. That would give us, I think, 3 weeks between now and then. But let's go to City Manager Troop. City Manager, did you have a follow-up comment to Councilmember Way's comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It was just a quick follow-up. Was yes, like I said earlier, I had reached out to the college and had some brief initial discussions, and they were open to talking about it. They actually had talked about attempting to go through with the board and waiving, I forgot which fee it was now, but waiving one of the fees there. There would still be some costs involved, such as potential cleanup if there was additional trash that wasn't able to get in the trash cans or something like that. It was, but the college did say they would be interested in talking. So I can get that contact information. I can't remember the person's name at the moment, but we can get that to the farmers market people.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, and before I go to Vice Mayor Chow again, and so, yeah, let me just elaborate on that point about maybe forming subcommittee. What I would hope is that we could come back on our April 5th meeting and just have a public update on our consent calendar. Hopefully it would turn out to be a great, story at the end, and location was, found. But I think ultimately, Jim raised a really good point in the sense that this is ultimately a private entity. And yeah, we can certainly do what we can as a city to try to help it, especially given the fact that it impacts so many of our residents. But I think that ultimately it would be an update if it came back on April 5th in a non-consent context. Of course, if there was an ask, we could consider that as well at that point. But Vice Mayor Chow, your hand's raised. So let's go to you at this point before I ask for a motion on this item or direction.
Okay, so it seems my understanding now is before this wasn't a work program item. So city staff didn't have time and was pretty reluctant to work on this because this is not really an item for them. Therefore, there may have not been enthusiastic communication with the Anza, but sounds like I think this kind of conversation should be driven by West Coast Farmers Market, not the city staff or council members. And I think we have also enthusiastic volunteers who are willing to find a way to make it work. It sounds like there should be a committee, but maybe West Coast Farmers Market and the two avid volunteers who knows ins and outs of the operation should be on the committee too. And maybe one or two council members can help communicate with the Anza, but then they should be really driving it, not the city staff or even the city council. But we would do everything we can to help to support that because this really benefits our residents. I think that should be our position, right? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vice Mayor Chow. And let's go to Councilmember Moore next.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Paul. I kind of have a different idea on that. I think it might actually be helpful to the farmers market if they were to have a subcommittee which included the Mayor and Councilmember Willie, because it sounds like he's done a great deal of research. So I think that might help. And however it turns out, I think it's important that we, bridge the gap between us and De Anza College. We did pass this, huge $890 million bond measure, and we've had the issue with Flint Center. So I think connecting with them overall, I think would be beneficial for both sides.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate that. My primary concern with my own schedule is just availability, frankly, with a lot of items on my plate. But let's see what Councilmember Willie has to say. Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, I support your thought on the subcommittee and a little more time. I'll just go back. I would like to hear from Jerry and Steve. The festival that's at Memorial Park the week after the current extension expires, what are their thoughts on where they would relocate if they needed to relocate for that one weekend? This is kind of a joint question to Joanne. Of course, I said, I want to see Memorial Park progress start moving along, but we are talking only about one day of the week, Sunday. And so even if it needed to be extended for another few weeks, let's see if we can't do it before then. But if not, are the trucks going to be actively working on Sundays, or I think the farmers market needs a little bit of stability in the decisions. Over this last year, as the city manager said, they've had 4 extensions, but each time, they've come to me and said, our extension is running out. Can you please help us to get it extended? To me, that just has not been fair to this entity, that they needed the city to be more proactive rather than just, telling them, hey, you've got an extension, and that it's going to expire when it's going to expire without, anything coming behind it. And so maybe it's a little bit on the farmers market to start, have been more proactive themselves, realizing it wouldn't last forever. But I do like your subcommittee, a little bit of time for us. Monte Vista High School that Councilman Moore mentioned, wow, that's something that hasn't been taught. Or maybe one of the other schools. We know our CUSD would, really like to provide services if they can be somewhat compensated, like our joint use agreements. So the other schools might be an option that we should be exploring. So I'll leave it at that. I'd be willing to assist with the subcommittee and come back at the earliest possible time. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councilmember Willie. Let me ask our attendee, Jerry. Let me go ahead. Jerry, I know you didn't want to go back as a panelist, but oh, no, here you are. Okay. Did you want to speak to your willingness to participate in this subcommittee, which would be comprised of a couple of council members and yourself, to try to reach out to, I think, De Anza College specifically, but perhaps other entities, to see if we can, try to find you guys a home going forward in Cupertino. Is that something that you'd be willing to spend some time in the next few weeks working on?
I will do anything I can to help find a new location. I would love to work with the council members. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry. Much appreciated. And so let me go ahead and make a motion then. I'd love to help, honestly, but it's really a matter of just being able to coordinate everything. I would propose that we have a subcommittee comprised of Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Willie to work with Jerry as the proprietor of the organization to reach out to various entities or even private entities to try to find a location for the West Coast Farmers Market going forward. Councilmember Willie, I see your hand raised. Would you like to second that motion?
I actually really do want to be the one to second your motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So that's the motion and the seconds on the table. I don't see further hands raised at this time, but I do see, well, Chris, did you turn your camera on for a reason? Our city attorney turned his camera, so I just want to make sure that we're not, running in direction of legal requirements.
No, I just noticed that it had turned off. So
Okay, got it. Okay, great. So, Councilmember Willie, your hand is raised. If you don't have any further comment, I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to conduct the roll call vote. But did you want to have further deliberation on this motion?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be very respectful. The vice mayor is very swamped. I mean, you're very swamped. She's very swamped. I'm happy to work with the vice mayor. Absolutely fantastic. But I want to give her the opportunity to say that she's overtaxed. I would be happy to work with Councilman Way, Councilman Moore, who the objective is simply what other locations might work for the farmers market. It's not something that requires any particular expertise. So thank you.
I see Councilmember Way with a hand raised. Councilmember Way, did you?
I let my Vice Mayor Chow have the first say. If she really doesn't want to do it, I'll be happy to work with Councilmember Willie.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Way. Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I hope it's a short term. We'll find us. We need to find it in 1 month, right? Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I really greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so, let me return to deliberation and staff. I really appreciate the extra time that staff has spent on this, and so clearly with the numbers and the service that this provides. Obviously, fresh fruits and vegetables. It's extremely important. I would like to ask that staff help out the subcommittee with a subsequent staff report. When it comes back, hopefully on April 5th. So is that something that you feel we need to add to the motion in order to, secure that support, Mr. City Manager, or could that just, be understood as, a request for that assistance?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. No, we can work on, if everything's cleared up, we can work on a short staff report for you.
Okay, great. Much appreciated. And Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised again.
Just a request that please forward whoever you have contacted with the Anza College to us so we can get in contact them as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. And so with no further hands raised, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote on this motion?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. And so that concludes our special meeting, and we will go ahead and convene for our regular meeting in 12 minutes. It's 6:33 right now. We will see you at 6:45. Thank you very much. Everyone, today is March 15th, 2022. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
And I'm here. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. The first item on our agenda tonight for this regular meeting is under ceremonial matters and presentations. I'm pleased to be able to recognize the receipt of the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, or the CSMFO Innovation Award, on behalf of our Cupertino City Council, and the recommended action is to do precisely that. Mr. City Manager Jim Troop, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We do, and I'm going to actually turn this over to Christina Alfaro, our Administrative Services Director.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Welcome, Director Alfaro.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to quickly turn it over to Thomas Leung, our Senior Management Analyst, who's actually the person behind these two awesome tools he's going to show to you this evening.
Great. And before we turn it over to Thomas, Christina, I'm really glad that we were able to deliver this to the public. I remember it was a conversation between you and me a couple of years ago that actually kickstarted this. I don't remember if it was in a public meeting or if we're just having conversation, but I'm glad to see these tools being delivered. And so without further ado, Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm pleased to report that the City of Cupertino has won the 2022 Innovation Award from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers. Today, I'll be discussing the award and then going through a brief demonstration of these tools. The California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, or CSMFO, is an organization serving California municipal finance professionals. It promotes excellence in financial management through innovation, continuing education, and professional development. The CSMFO Innovation Award recognizes innovation in public sector finance. An Innovation Award review panel of CSMFO board members and the recognition committee leadership scores the applications. The review panel looks for originality, purpose, practicality, and transferability. CSMFO awarded the City of Cupertino the 2020 Innovation Award for the city's resident tax calculator and budget forecast tool. This is the first time that the city has received this award, and this highlights the city's commitment to innovation despite unique challenges presented by the pandemic. The resident tax calculator gives residents personalized estimates of how much they pay in sales and property taxes. When a resident enters how much they spend on goods and services and the assessed value of their home, the calculator shows them how much they pay in taxes and where those taxes go. This tool was first released in January 2021. In October 2020, the city also hosted a meeting to allow residents to test the beta version and provide feedback. This group, which included Mayor Paul and Councilmember Moore, provided valuable feedback that influenced the final design of this tool. The goal of this tool is to show residents how taxes are calculated, show them how taxes are distributed amongst agencies, and also show residents which city services are funded by these tax dollars. Next, I'll move on to the budget forecast tool. The budget forecast tool allows residents to build their own version of the city's budget forecast. This tool was first shared with the public at our community budget workshop, Budget and Bites, in April 2021. At this virtual workshop, residents were able to build their own budget forecasts and communicate with the group how they came up with their own budget forecast. Residents can select from various revenue and spending options and then immediately see how each choice impacts the surplus or deficit. The goal of this tool is to illustrate long-term impacts of budget decisions, as well as demonstrate trade-offs between these budget decisions, and finally promote informed discussion around fiscal sustainability. Now I'll walk you through the resident tax calculator. So first, we ask residents how much do they spend in Cupertino in a year. And so we have a variety of options between $500 all the way till several $100,000. And then if you hover over this box, you can also see that certain items are excluded from sales tax, such as groceries or cold foods, hot bakery foods, etc. Then once you enter that information, you can see how much you pay in sales tax and also how much the city receives. So if somebody spent $12,000 in a year or around $1,000 a month, the city would receive $1,080 or 9% of that. And then, so total sales tax would be $1,080, and then the city would receive 11% of that, or $120. And here on this chart, you can see that the state of California receives the largest portion at 67%, and other portions also go to BTA and the county. On the next page, we ask residents whether they own a home or not. If they say yes, then we ask them what is the assessed value of their property. And so again, they can select between a variety of options. And then from here, we can see that if the property is assessed at $2 million, property tax would be 1% of that, and the city would receive 6.5% of that, or $1,300. And here, hovering over these slices of this chart, we can see that other portions go to the Santa Clara County school districts and the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund, as well as other special districts. And then you can also see a description of what this agency does and a link to their website. And then on this page, you can see the city's share by each service. So here we have sales tax, the city receiving $120 in sales tax and $1,300 in property tax, for a total of $1,400. And you can see that the largest shares go towards public works, funding public works, and law enforcement. We can also see the types of expenses that this funds. And you can see that the largest shares would go to contract services, employee compensation, and employee benefits. And to learn more, you can go to the Financial Transparency portal or look at a budget at a glance. At this time, I'll be describing a budget forecast tool. So this is a hypothetical scenario for illustrative purposes only. It's a simplification of a budget process, but some of the numbers may be similar to our actual budget. First, users can select a scenario for sales tax, property tax, and transient occupancy tax or hotel tax, which are our three largest revenue sources. From there, they can select a variety of ongoing and one-time expenses. And as you can see, every time somebody makes a choice, annual surpluses and deficits are impacted, as well as the total revenues, total expenses, and total surplus or deficit at the top. And finally, residents can also choose a revenue generation measure such as an additional tax or an expense reduction strategy to reduce expenses. And so these are options that can help balance that budget. And so the resident tax calculator and budget forecast tool provide innovative solutions for promoting fiscal transparency and engaging residents in the city's budget process. They're available at cupertino.org/interactive budget tools. More information is also available at the city's budget page, as well as at the city's interactive financial transparency portal, OpenGov. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to these tools. This includes staff who beta tested early versions, and residents and city council members who attended our user groups and community budget workshops. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. Really greatly appreciated. And let's go ahead and, let me read off the URLs, cupertino.org/budget and cupertino.org/opengov. That's one word, OPENGOV. Typically, we only provide 3 to 5 minutes for presentations under this ceremonial items and presentations heading, but this is the public's money, and so we wanted to provide the 10 to 15 minutes. And Thomas, thanks very much for, as usual, being really efficient and succinct about it. A lot of great information in there. I do see Councilmember Willie with a hand raised. And Councilmember Willie, did you want to ask a question or make a brief comment?
A little bit of both. So, Thomas, thank you very much for that. Very enlightening. So the question/comment, the question being, so how are you letting the community know that we have this, that they can go and try? Have you done community outreach, or, what's that? And then I have a question or a comment.
So the community outreach that we've done so far would be one, we had a community budget workshop. That was just a small group to test the calculator. And then last year we had a Budget and Bytes budget workshop where we demonstrated the forecast tool. And I think this year we also plan to promote these tools at a Budget and Bytes community budget workshop, as well as a budget study session. And then we also plan to do further outreach using social media.
Great. So then the comment would be, you know, I'm 100% focused on resident engagement, making sure we're engaging with it. So the Cupertino scene, I think this should kind of be on the cover, you know, so that it really is visible to get the word out. I would then also go that, you know, I could see this type of tool really sparking the interest of a significant number of high school students. They need to do projects in their classes, and here they could actually create their own so-called budget options and kind of learn some cognitive skills for what is a budget. You know, it's not unlimited money, and carry that with them, you know, in life. So I'm not sure how we would reach out to the schools to let them know, but plant the seed that maybe you can figure something along that line. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. And so let's go on to Councilmember Way. And Councilmember Way, I will note that we do have one member of the public with a hand raised. And so why don't you make your question and or comments, and we'll go to the member of the public to see if they want to speak on this item.
I'll wait.
You'll wait? Okay, great. So under the attendees, I see someone labeled call-in user 2. Call-in user 2, I will go ahead and push the allow to talk button. I believe you'll need to push *6 if you want to speak on this item. This is our presentation item regarding the budget tools. And so I'll wait another few seconds. If you unmute yourself, feel free to speak on this item.
Sorry, actually, respected council members, actually it's for the oral communication.
Okay, we will get back to you in a moment. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so let's go to Councilmember Way. You had your hand raised, and I'll just remind everyone, this is a great topic, of course, but let's keep it with the presentations. We have a pretty, anticipated to be a fairly packed agenda tonight. So Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Very short, just congratulations. I'm so glad our staff are innovative. Maybe the Teen Commission can take it over and play with it. Could be good family activities too.
Thanks, Councilmember Way. Yeah, great tool. Well done, our finance department. And so let's go on to item number 2 on our agenda. And I believe that is council contacts. These are contacts since our last council meeting on March 1st that are not our committee assignments. However, hold on, let me refer to the agenda. I believe we probably have oral communications before that, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, actually, and another thing. Madam City Clerk, so I'll back up. We're not on item 2, we're at postponements and orders of the day. Madam City Clerk, do we have any postponements or orders of the day from staff requested?
Yes, Mayor. Staff requests continuing item number 8 regarding consideration of the application deadline and interview dates for the Teen Commission annual recruitment until April 5th.
Until April 5th. Does staff provide a reason for that?
To collect more information for council, make some adjustments, and be able to come back with a more complete staff report.
Okay, that sounds workable to me. And let me go ahead and ask our council whether there are any requests under postponements and orders of the day. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I was wondering, well, let's see if I can combine all this. I'd like to move that item 14 be placed on consent, and that we, per the staff recommendation, that we continue item 8 to April 5th.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. That should work to make our meeting more efficient here. And so, given the fact that you were the person who were the driving force behind item number 14, I will go ahead and second that. I appreciate that. I appreciate your pointing out the drone policy and the need for one. And item 8 is as under staff requested. I do have a member of the public with a hand raised at this point. I don't see any further council hands raised, and so I'm assuming that there are no other postponements and orders of the day requested. And so that member of the public has lowered her hand in anticipation, I think, of me unmuting her. So thank you very much for that. So let me go ahead and take a roll call vote on that. So again, this is postponing item number 8 until April 5th. And then for item number 14, that would place it onto our consent calendar. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote for that?
Councilmember Moore?
Mayor, I wish.
Oh, Vice Mayor Chow, I apologize. You have your hand raised. And so, Madam City Clerk, I retract that request to take the roll call vote. Vice Mayor Chow, you have a question or a comment?
So I think I sent staff an email earlier that I'd like to pull this item because I thought we should consider 4 team commission seats this year so that we can balance that out. Otherwise, the students this year have only 3 seats to compete for.
Okay, Vice Mayor Chow, before you deliberate.
That's why the staff would.
I'm going to stop you there. Please stop. I need to stop you there because this is a procedural matter as to whether we postpone it to April 5th. And so before you get into deliberating on the substance of the matter, let me go and just suggest to you that this is a deliberation over whether we should postpone it. And so if you want to not postpone it and consider it now because you have substantive deliberation on it, just so state. Just say that basically. I have substantive.
Sorry, what was the reason for postponing?
The reason for postponing, according to our city clerk, was that the staff want to do a little bit more follow-up with regard to the item. And so, Madam City Clerk, did you want
everything is there already? So what's?
Yeah, let me reiterate the specific reason. And I see our city attorney has a microphone on as well. Chris, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so I just identified a concern I had with the staff recommendation, and that was done late. So, but I think it's better that we go back and take another look at it before presenting the information to council.
Okay. So city attorney had a legal concern about it. So we won't be scheduling anything until it comes back, correct? Or we wouldn't.
Correct.
Okay. So Vice Mayor, that's you can bring up your concern on April 5th. The motion passes, but your concern about wanting to talk about it in substance at this point is noted. Was there anything else that you wanted to bring up without getting into the substance of the item itself? Because this is a procedural.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Vice Mayor Chow. Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct that roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wei?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. We are on to oral communications. Oral communications have to do with any item on our agenda that is not, any matter of public interest that is not on our agenda this evening. And so if you want to speak to a matter that is not agendized, this is your chance to speak to that. So oral communications are 3 minutes per the practice this year. I will be calling on hands that have their hands raised in the Zoom function before the first speaker is done speaking. And so here, and I will remind people that we do have a few items on our agenda tonight. If you have your hand raised for instance, the extremely low income housing issue of number 10, or the CUSD school closure item of item 12, you want to lower your hand and speak to that on that particular item, because that would not be an oral communication on a non-agendized item. Okay, so right now I have call-in user 2 with a hand raised, Jenny and San Rao. And so call-in user 2, welcome, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you, Mayor, and respect to the council and all the audience. Actually, I need to mention is this city somehow become one of the most self-interested city anywhere on the earth. And if you know, one of the big things happening in the city is private property, and in the backyard was a fairly small build-up. Only you actually was on that property, and was actually was told many times doesn't need a permit, and subsequently actually got symbolic permit $1,000, and also told many times and nothing should happen. And under that situation, and the still was a different party somehow for their own interest filed a different case not the original one, and take advantage of the situation and take advantage of the permit. Actually, it's the symbolic one, so we don't know anything could happen, and go torn down and take everything away, including the personal belonging too, and this kind of things that you don't even hear in different kind of part of the world, and under this kind of full democratic country. So we want the reform in the city, and for all those parties underhanded and involved in decision making have this cruel and unethical decisions, and also you do better in the city. And you're talking about this financial budget, all this kind of policies, and certainly need to put to the parties. If this city couldn't have any parties doing this work for their own citizens in the city, and need a third party independently of the citizen in the city. And so that's the main thing we are talking about. And certainly we need the reform in the city, and become less self-interested, and for something nothing to do with them in people's backyard, and make all these decisions. So, and I hope this city doing better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jenny, followed by San Rao, and our final oral communication speaker is Rick Kitson. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I recently mentioned, I think during oral probably 2 weeks ago, that there was a new bill submitted, AB 2097, which is supposed to not allow cities to have parking minimums for new construction across the state. This is replacing a bill that died in late January, AB 1401. This bill, the new bill, AB 2097, was submitted by Assemblymember Laura Friedman. I believe she's from Glendale, Southern California, and Senator Wiener and Assemblymember Nancy Skinner. I am dumbfounded that bills like this are continuously introduced and passed. Well, I'm going to say in this situation, the legislature had the foresight to not pass 1401. Again, bills like this, when elected officials submit bills like this, they are not considering any of the public's voices across the state. It's basically carbon copy. Someone wanted us to have this happen. We made the bill, we submitted it, we expect it to be passed, but we have not asked the public, we have not announced to the public, we have not told the public. We don't want the public's input. This has happened over and over again. I think the housing bills are glaring examples of this. So we need to keep our eyes on AB 2097 and its progression. I hope that there is some wisdom in our elected officials in Sacramento, that they see that having something like this bill put across the state at one time without asking the public is a complete travesty. This is not a democratic way of doing this. This bill you won't have any parking in new construction. That means that all the cars are going to be parked in the adjacent neighborhoods, flooding whoever is around them, single family homes, multifamily homes, apartments, et cetera, haven't asked anybody's input. We just decided that we think that this is the best thing for the whole state, and let's slap it in. And then we get after the cities like a year from now, if this bill would go into effect, I'm assuming 23. I have 13 seconds. The whole state, then, every city would be reprimanded by HCD, the government, etc. Let's don't do that again. Let's learn from SB 35 disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Our next speaker is San Rao. Welcome, San.
Yes, thank you, City Council, for allowing me to speak. I'm a resident of Cupertino and also a parent in CUSD. The reason I speak today is because I would like to request the council and the staff to take a look at the enforcement of traffic that is happening in the morning hours between 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. by any of our schools in the city of Cupertino. You will find that parents are being repeatedly issued citations by the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department for violations that you may consider in the law legally, but are violations that are fairly small in the grand scheme of things. I will give you an example. One of the violations that is repeatedly cited on Pepper Tree Lane by Ferry Elementary every morning or at least 3 days a week is an illegal U-turn if traffic is within 200 feet of the car. The traffic on Pepper Tree Lane is at crawling pace. Cars are stopped at the pedestrian crossing to let kids cross. And parents are probably seeing traffic at 10 miles an hour or less. If a U-turn is made to use parking on the other side of the road, immediately parents get cited. We have crime happening in Cupertino every single day. Every day we have a burglary happening in the nights in Cupertino. We have car break-ins that happen routinely in the parking lots of Whole Foods, Target, and so on. And yet it is parents that are having to face tickets day in and day out and being cited for reasons that really you cannot help but wonder what is the priority of our Sheriff's Department here. I request the city of Cupertino to conduct a study by doing some spot checks around our schools of the ticketing that is happening. And I request the city to please work with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department to have their priorities set straight, to focus on crime, to focus on break-ins, and to focus on patrols of our neighborhood streets so that residents feel safer. And the enemy here is crime. It is not parents trying to drop their kids out of school. I request your attention to this matter. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Sam. And our next and final speaker under oral communications is Rick Kitson. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Just wanted to say a quick word while I was at the meeting this evening. If people look around and have noticed that everything seems a little busier, a little less parking, a little more traffic, that's because it is busier. I think signs are that we're coming out of the pandemic. One of those signs is that every Saturday for the rest of the month, there will be a new business opening in Cupertino. Thank you to council members and Mr. Mayor for attending the Care Plus MD opening right across the street from City Hall. This coming Saturday on the 19th, Sun Acupuncture Wellness Clinic is opening up in Monte Vista. And on the 26th, we have Lilikoi Boba that will be opening also. That's at 2 p.m. And those business openings are over and above other events that are coming up. We have the Food and Wine Stroll coming up on the 24th, a popular event outdoors, and also great food and great wine this year from throughout Northern California. We have some Duckhorn coming down and Calera coming down from St. Helena. So some great offerings. And beyond that, as if that were not enough, the April 1st LAC, we have a forum of our 3 candidates for district attorney. So hopefully you will join us for that. And immediately following, sign up for the annual Chefs of Compassion. So yeah, it is busier. We're coming out of the pandemic, and that's frankly a good problem. Hope to see you at some of the upcoming events.
Thank you, Rick. And that concludes oral communications. We're on to item number 2 on our agenda. This is under the larger heading reports by council and staff. Item number 2 is a set of brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements since our March 1st meeting And I remind everyone that this is not having to do with our formal committee assignments that are divvied out in December. Would anyone like to go first? And this is very brief. We have 5 minutes in total for all of our council. And so everyone is allocated roughly a minute for these summaries. And so Councilmember Way, please.
Okay, I'll just report on one item because we attended a few of us who attended AAPA's leaders luncheon hosted by Evan Load. It was a good networking, and I've seen Mayor Paul and Vice Mayor Chow there, so it was a good networking opportunity. I'll leave the rest to the rest of the council.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Way. Let's go to Vice Mayor Chow.
Hi, yeah, I attended the same luncheon. It was hosted by Assembly Member Evan Lowe at the new Dynasty and on Bollinger. It's called Grand Dynasty. So we finally have a meeting location around here. Unfortunately, it's in West San Jose. Sales tax goes there. But on the 5th, I attended a national Northern California Joint Alumni Association for colleges from Taiwan, and with the mayor. They are appointing their new president and board. And then on the 12th, I attended the grand opening of Care Plus Medical Care Plus MD internist clinic that's opened here. So we will have some new grand opening coming up. So I'm happy to see that business is coming back to normal. And also I'm so happy that I couldn't find the parking on Saturday at the shopping mall. I thought, wow, this is cool. Business is back into as usual.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next, we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to stretch it just a little bit. You know, Ukraine is so far away from us, but it is being so devastated. The artwork behind me is from children in Poland, from Ukraine. The little picture of a girl trying to make the best of this situation. I think we all need to look for ways that we can help, show our support. I would hope that we would have, you know, a few gatherings or marches around here like we're seeing in Europe. It's just horrendous, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. I'll go with a brief summary. I have had a lot of interfaces with Caltrans to get a litter cleanup event on T for us at 9:30 this Saturday. That's going to be from 9:30 to noon. We actually have double success here because VTA is holding its own event as well. And so this is all at the 280 De Anza exit. And so, of course, there are 4 different, places we could go. We could go to the off ramps and the on ramps on both 280 North and 280 South. And rest assured, if you're interested in volunteering, they will be closing off the on ramps and off ramps during that time. So the safety issue is not a concern with regard to the cars, and we'll be going ahead and having training from Caltrans as well. So thanks for anyone and everyone who is interested and will participate in that. And so let me go ahead and check in with Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, did you want to provide any updates? Okay, so great, though. Thank you for helping us move the meeting along. And we have item number 3, that is report on those committee assignments I was referencing earlier. These are council committee assignments. And Councilmember Moore, let's have you kick it off for our committee assignments since our March 1st meeting. And you'll need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I hit it. Okay. On March 10th, I chaired the VTA PAC, and most importantly, we went over the grant funding opportunities the cities have, and our staff member on the TAC will also be seeing these grant opportunities as well. VTA is a resource for our staff members seeking these multiple grants in order to match projects to the transportation grants available. So hopefully our staff will be reaching out to them, and I'll be checking back probably on a monthly basis to see what kind of grant opportunities our city has applied for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. And we have Councilmember Willie next.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So we had our monthly Silicon Valley Clean Energy meeting. The noteworthy items this time, entering into an agreement with Goal Line energy storage, just to kind of let the community know what's going on. Lots of solar, lots of other renewable energy during the day, but that's not when the demand is. The real demand is when you get home in the evenings. So by entering into these storage agreements where that renewable energy is taken during the day and stored so that it can be used in the evening to reduce our reliance on the fossil fuels. The second item is that just today, the ribbon cutting for Slate Solar that Silicon Energy has an agreement with to buy the solar. The noteworthy thing here is for residents that are buying their power through Silicon Valley Clean Energy, the Silicon Valley Clean Energy has to enter into these purchase agreements with the renewable suppliers as opposed to getting it directly from PG&E with traditional fossil fuel or nuclear power plants. And so with each and every one that they purchase or make an purchase agreement with, that provider needs to then go build that supply. And that's what the kickoff was today for one of the existing purchase agreements. And again, it's the Slate Solar and Storage. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. And so I'll go ahead with my updates from last time for March 1st. We had a March 3rd VTA board meeting. And so one thing I will report out from there is that VTA is looking and has approved the purchase of a fleet of paratransit shuttles, roughly $15 million. They are gas combustion. And they did kind of remind me of our recent purchase of leaf blowers. I know everyone's making very good faith efforts, to electrify. The technology isn't quite, as fast as we like it to be, but, I'd really like to be able to follow this and make sure that we're doing what we can in that regard. I made a comment to that point at our VTA board meeting. I think generally people, agree. It's just a matter of the pragmatic realities of what we can do at this point. On the 9th, I had a meeting with our commissioner representatives, and I'd like to remind everyone to get your Crest Award nominations in by this Friday. They are for Rising Star, Volunteer of the Year, Organization of the Year, and Lifetime Achievement Award. And it may be an open question as to whether we go back to the old Crest format. If you have, opinions and thoughts about that, please feel free to email City Council. But for this iteration, we have the relatively newer format, and so those applications are due for the nominations for these types of Crest Awards by this Friday. On March 10th, the Cities Association met. We're going to have a very significant time coming up within the next month, which is when we transition back to live meetings. And so under the Brown Act in California, under normal conditions, if you video into a meeting, you have to go ahead and video in and post a notice as to where you are, so that the public can come to that particular address and give public communications. And so one of the things that we did at our board meeting for the Cities Association of Santa Clara County was to refer the question of AB 1944 to our respective councils or legislative review committees. AB 1944 is legislation brought forth by our local legislators. I believe not just Assemblymember Lee, but also Assemblymember Lowe and Senator Cortese are bringing forth this idea of not having to post the notice for video conferenced meetings. And so that would affect video conference meetings going forward, as well as hybrid meetings possibly. And so this general topic is, of course, of very significant import to everyone right now. We've gone through, as we all know, a couple of years of the video conferencing meetings. And so they would also, I think, tend to lead to collateral questions as well. We're not necessarily going to solve all of these things at one point, but certainly those discussions are happening on both the direct and the legislative levels. So that's my update. Does anyone else have committee assignment updates since our March 1st meeting? If not, I'm going to move us on to item 4 on our agenda. That will be our city manager update. Mr. City Manager Jim Troop, do you have updates for us from March 1st?
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, that's sort of a good segue. This is going to be my last COVID update. So you've had it from some other people. This will probably be it should be the last one. So if you recall, just a few weeks back, a month ago or so, we were at roughly 6,000 cases on a 7-day average. We're down to 226. So it looks like things are somewhat under control and hoping it stays that way. And as you said, we're looking at going back to in-person meetings. So I wanted to let everyone know that our first in-person meeting since the outbreak, which our last one was in March of 2020, I believe, is going to be this next meeting on April 5th. So those that are watching online, if you want to come down to our community hall and join us, that would be great. We'll be doing a hybrid version. So if you don't want to attend in person, you can still watch us online. And the other part is we'll be opening our city hall to walk-in traffic on April 11th, so essentially the next week, as well as most other city facilities. And that was all I had for tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jim. And now we are on to our consent calendar. I'll remind everyone that under postponements and orders of the day, we postpone item number 8 on our consent calendar. And so this would regard items number 5, 6, 7, and 9. And so would any member of the public like to speak? I do see our city manager as well as Councilmember Moore have their hands raised. Let me check in with them first. City Attorney rather. City Attorney Jensen, did you have a comment that you want to make with regard to this?
I think I might have the same comment as Councilmember Moore, is in that we also moved item number 14 to the consent calendar.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. Excellent point and good memory. Councilmember Moore, was that indeed your comment, given that your hand is still up?
Yes, I'm waiting to second.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and move, since the request is there for a, well, would you like to make the motion, Councilmember Moore? I don't see any members of the public with their hands raised, and so I'll just go ahead and bring it back to council. Did you want to make that motion for items 5, 6, 7, 9, and 14?
Yes, I move that we accept consent agenda items 5 through 7, 9, and 14.
Okay, great. And as recommended in the agenda, correct? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Appreciate it. And Councilmember Wade, are you? Great. So Moore moves, Wade seconds. I don't see any further hands raised on our consent calendar. And so, Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wade?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. We are on to item number 10. We don't have any second readings of ordinances or public hearings tonight. Under ordinances and action items, subject 10 for item 10 is progress on our fiscal year 2021 to 2022 council work program item. And that item is to develop extremely low income and below market rate housing units for developmentally disabled individuals on city-owned property along Mary Avenue. And so I'll bring this over to our city manager. Mr. City Manager Troop, would you like to go ahead and introduce the staff presenter for this item number 10?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm actually I'll first introduce Ben Fu, our Community Development Director, to move forward on this one, but it is something that I'm excited to see. I know we've been having some questions about this particular item, so I think Council will enjoy this presentation, and I will turn it over to Ben.
Great, thanks, Jim, and welcome, Director Fu.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. John Martier, the Senior Planner, is a project manager of this project, so he's got a nice presentation for you. Included what we're trying to achieve tonight is, in addition to providing you an update on what's happened in the project, but also seeking some direction from you for the next step. So with that, I will hand it off to John. John?
Welcome.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, John Martier, Senior Planner, City of Cupertino. And thank you for the introduction, Jim and Ben. Yes, this is about the council work program item with a priority of number 2 on this fiscal year's work program. again, let me see. Okay, here we go. So a little background on this. The council has had ELI housing on public land as far back as the 2019-2020 City Council Work Program. In that fiscal year, it was defined mostly on Byrne Avenue. The following year, Byrne Avenue was taken off of that, but still there was as part of that work program item identified to work with nonprofit housing groups such as Habitat for Humanity to construct ELI housing for the developmentally disabled community. So it wasn't until this year that this 2021-2022 city work program that it evolved to analyze specifically the Mary Avenue, the parcelization of surplus right-of-way along Mary Avenue, allowing the Highway 85 sound wall. Okay, so a brief analysis of the site. So what we have around this area is a very mix of uses, with the Highway 85 to the west, the Cupertino Dog Park to the north, the future Westport development to the south, and the Glenbrook Apartments to the east. So currently right now, what you have along the proposed parcelization of the right-of-way is about 93 parking spaces, as well as about 15 feet of landscaping. And so just to give the community an idea of what's there currently, I'm going to attempt to pull out a Google Street View of the area, and hopefully it works, and yes, it does. This is essentially taken from the northern end of where the parcel would be. You can see the Cupertino Dog Park in the background right here. And, again, this is taken from 2019, probably, about 3 months before, the community was in lockdown. But still, essentially, what it's being used for right now is mostly just parking and landscaping within the right-of-way. As we go through here, you can see that that's really what it is. Go back to the presentation. So, oops, sorry guys. There we go. Wrong one. Okay. Currently, right now, as it is public right-of-way, the land use and zoning is considered transportation T. The proposed parcel. So when looking at the division of the right-of-way, staff, mainly community development and public works, want to take in consideration to ensure that there's adequate right-of-way to provide multimodal travel and parking along at least one side of Mary Avenue. What does this mean? And so what the resulting width of Mary Avenue at the portion where there would be a parcelization would be about 56 foot wide Mary Avenue right-of-way. And this would include one-lane vehicle lanes and bicycle lanes in each direction, sidewalks on both sides. Parking would be limited along the eastern edge of the road and being maintained on the western portion of the road, even with the new parcel. You wouldn't have the 90-degree parcel. I'm sorry, you wouldn't have the 90-degree parking like you do currently. It would be in the design of parallel parking. We do have the assistant director of public works, Chad Mosley, in, as well as being the city engineer, to answer any questions about the particular designs and what the anticipation for the design of Mary Avenue in the future would be to accommodate this parcel. So the resulting parcel is this right here. This was attached to the staff report, and so if it's difficult to read for the public, I do apologize. So I'll do my best to present the parcel dimensions to you. So the resulting size of the parcel is about 0.79 acres. The length, it's very long. It's about 860 feet wide. And the width is about 38 feet for most of the parcel. At the ends, it does go up to about 50 to 55 feet, but really at the ends towards the Westport onto the south and the dog park to the north. This circled area is to show that there is a 6.5 foot distance between the property line and the 85 foot in the Highway 85 sound wall. So again, this is a summary of the basic parcel dimensions. You can see the approximate length, 860 feet. approximate width 38 feet, and the square foot is about 34,500 square feet, or 0.79 acres. So one of the things that the city has to do, is bound by state law when it comes to disposition of surplus land. So what is surplus land? So state defines surplus land as land owned fee simple by a local agency, whether it be a city or county or even a school district. And in this case, the local jurisdiction has to make a determination that the land really doesn't serve a purpose as a city anymore and is indeed surplus. To dispose of surplus land is a very time-consuming process, and one that is, for lack of a better term, bogged down in bureaucracy about how you dispose of it and whatnot. The state does allow for what's called exempt surplus land, and under this condition, the process is a little bit more streamlined and a lot more simple. We believe as staff, with the prior city attorney as well as the current city attorney, that this future parcel could be considered exempt surplus land. How could it be considered exempt surplus land? Well, the state says that certain surplus land can be exempt if it restricts 100% of the residential units to persons and families of low to moderate income. And of that 100%, the 75% of the residential units restricted to lower income households. And that there's a minimum of 55 years for rental housing that you have this restriction. The local agency, however, must invite through an RFQ process any local public entity within whose jurisdiction surplus land is located. Further, housing sponsors have notified the State Department of Housing and Community Development of their interest in surplus land to participate in the bidding process. So it still has to be an open bid to multiple developers or to the community at large for those who would want to develop this for affordable housing. So again, the project developer will be selected through an RFP process. So staff recommends the following for next steps. Is that if council agrees to go forward with this, this proposed project is to circulate RFP for qualified housing developers. Once one is selected, concurrently, the project can be processed with the parcel map to create the parcel for development, the general plan and zoning map amendments, any necessary CEQA evaluation, any associated planning entitlements, which can include development permit, use permit, or an architectural site approval, and a city council declaration that the site is exempt surplus land. And again, this can all be done concurrently. So fiscal impact, as part of the fiscal year 2022, the adopted budget was additional $100,000, which was carried out, which $150,000 was carried over from the prior year's council work program items to come to a total of $250,000 for this project. To date, the city has incurred about roughly $12,500 in expenses, mostly spent on the creation of the draft parcel map and topographic map. Next step is, upon direction from the City Council on the RFQ process, would be initiated for qualified affordable housing developers. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martir. And we will go on to our members of the public. I do have a request in early from a member of the public to speak first with slides. And so I'll go ahead and call on that person. If Orrin Mahoney is here, he did ask to speak first and did send in some slides earlier today. And so Orrin, you'll need to raise your hand so that I can identify. Oh, your hand is raised. Good. So I also have hands raised from Jenny and Jan Stokley. I remind our members of the public that by the time the first speaker has concluded speaking, you'll need to have your hand raised to speak on this item, which is item number 10. Orrin, welcome.
Unmute. Perfect. All right. So first of all, good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council. First of all, I want to thank and congratulate the council for placing this on the city work plan and for demonstrating creativity and supporting this innovative way to produce needed housing by repurposing unused city space. While the need is great for housing of all sorts, it is especially needed for our most vulnerable populations, as you'll hear in a while. The staff report certainly covered the nuts and bolts very well. And I do want to state that I have confirmed our plans with the Public Works as far as the right of way and all that. So I think we're good on that. But I do want to spend a few minutes to remind you of the overall project. So the overall project, we think we can do about 40 units of affordable housing along here. And I'll show you some, draft pictures of that. The primary target is adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And in the end, the project may have a mixed use because we can't, for financial reasons, we may have other people in there along with them, but all low income people as well. As you heard, it uses surplus land to reduce costs. And this project is driven by a coalition of organizations. So the City of Cupertino, obviously, you've gone ahead and done a lot of the work and there's more to do. The Rotary Club of Cupertino is kind of the project lead in this. Charities Housing that did the Veranda project would be the project manager and the project manager, and ultimately the project manager. And Housing Choices is the advocate for these people, the targeted audience, and they would do future case management. And we brought West Valley Community Services in as well. Next. So, you've seen kind of what this might look like. We really are talking about two sets of units, 2-story units, as you'll see. And in the center, there is a community room that's not just for the residents in general, but that's where they can get the services that they need. These people need services. So people will be coming in from time to time to deliver those services. And we want a facility there that lets them do that because the units themselves are rather small. It's not going to be where you can sit in somebody's living room and deliver the services. Pretty much the units are quite small, as you'll see. Next. So this is just a kind of a layout of what those units might look like. So this is, we took the lead a few years ago to have an architect that was interested in helping us out to put together these, very early draft plans just to see if this would work out. And we think it will. And as I said, we've confirmed that with Public Works as far as what the right-of-way would look like after the development of the excess land. And finally, again, these are next, sorry. Yeah, so this is a little bit of what the units might look like. Obviously, we're in the extremely early stages, and but they'd have a nice look. As you saw, it's almost 0.8 acre, but it's a unique kind of property, but we think we can do that well. So my hope is that you'll continue to support this project. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the city to make this happen. Oh, there is one more slide that just came in today. Those of you that may have read the Mercury News this morning saw that in Palo Alto, they're doing a very similar project. They're getting their land from the county, which is another way to do this and to make it affordable. And we're getting our land by being creative. So I'm hoping that we can that Cupertino could take the lead here and show Palo Alto how it's done. And with that, as I said, we look forward to continuing our partnership to make this happen. And I look forward to the council moving this ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oren. Our next speaker is Jenny, and I'll read off the hands raised. Jan Stokley, Kieran Varshnaya, Janet Van Zoren, Peggy Griffin. And so, Jenny, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. This looks like a very nice project. It looks like it's very beautifully designed. I'm sure that it will be a complement to the city and provide a lot of housing for very deserving people. I just had a question that was from the information about the parcel. when we were talking about surplus land, okay, now that was interesting how this surplus land essentially had a special situation where you could put this type of housing on it. The city planner had talked about this. I just had a question. In the last several years, there had been some housing bills or things that had been done at the state level about surplus land. We had to make lists of surplus land. Cities have to disclose all surplus land in a city and give it to Sacramento. I'm glad that if we have any surplus land, that Cupertino is going to be able to use it for something for Cupertino people, maybe some other folks, but we're not giving the land away to a developer in San Diego or Manteca or Chico, or not picking on cities here. But I really, really am concerned that Sacramento is getting really handsy and grabby. They really want to take assets out of each city and control them from afar. Sounds like Mr. Putin? Oh yeah, it does. But I like the fact that Cupertino has been able to take this site, which has been long considered for some type of housing, and use it for people who live in Cupertino or family members of people who are interested in the welfare of Cupertino. We are not giving this land away to a developer in some other part of the state or some other state or some other country at that point. Oligarchs, who knows? But I'd like to know the history of this surplus land situation. If this was something that was just from the last 2 to 3 years when the housing bills ramped up. But I really like the fact that Cupertino is able to keep this land, keep it off any lists from handsy grabby Sacramento, and have it become something that is going to be like the veranda and is a real asset and beautiful construction for the city of Cupertino, for our residents and family members of people who live in Cupertino or other cities, people who need this type of housing. It's close to De Anza College, the senior center, etc. But I really would like to know, was this ever considered surplus, and could Sacramento get it? Thank you.
Appreciate it. And our next speaker is Jan Stokley. Welcome, Jan. Jan, I don't see her hand anymore, so when I went to unmute you, I didn't. Did you somehow get into the panelists? So Jan, if you can hear this, raise your hand. Oh, there you go. Welcome, Jan.
Great, thanks. I may have clicked the hand too soon. I'm Jan Stokley, Executive Director of Housing Choices. We're a nonprofit organization based here in Santa Clara County, and we serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We focus on creating inclusive, affordable housing opportunities so that adults with developmental disabilities can remain in their home communities as their parents age and need to develop a plan for where the adult will live when the parent can no longer provide them a home. We have 24 inclusive housing properties operating now. Cities across Santa Clara County, San Mateo, and Santa Cruz County have adopted and implemented this inclusive housing model, in part because they know their residents and want to serve their residents, and also because it's one of the priority special needs populations called out for each city's to address in their housing elements. So the housing needs of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are a priority under our housing element, which is being developed now. So this property would be particularly helpful because right now, Cupertino adults are being referred to Housing Choices for affordable housing, and we have to move them elsewhere. And both they and their families would much rather they can stay in the community where they have connections, support, networks. And so it's very important that Cupertino get in line and help us create that opportunity for the Cupertino residents with adults with disabilities in their family. I want to emphasize the great work that the collaborative has done to get us this far. and thank the all the partners. I think with respect to the RFQ process, the city has the ability to prioritize developers who respond based on how they address the housing needs of extremely low-income people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So as you said about framing the RFQ or RFP, make sure you let developers know that that's your priority so that you get proposals that are responsive to that. And in response to the prior question, many of our inclusive housing properties have a preference for local residents. So for example, there'll be a preference for people with developmental disabilities who need the coordinated on-site services, and there'll be a further preference for residents of people who live or work in Cupertino or the city. So it's not uncommon to have both preferences at a single site. And because the need is so huge, we really don't have any problem working with both preferences at one property. So it's very exciting to see this get to this place. I hope the RFQ will be written so that it's explicitly directing developers that there'll be a priority on serving this particular population, because otherwise.
Thanks very much. Your time has arrived.
Okay.
Appreciate it. So our next speaker is Kiran Varshnaya. Welcome, Kiran.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Kiran Varshnaya, and I'm speaking as an individual today. Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor Paul and the City Council members for this opportunity to bring my inputs. So today I'm speaking in support of the ELI and BMR housing units as proposed at the Mary Avenue location, the site. We need such housing for our community to help the needy, especially the population with intellectual and development disabilities. I'm requesting the City Council to consider taking forward this proposal of the City Council work program. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Our next speaker is Janet Van Zoren. Welcome, Janet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. Oren and Jan and Kieran have described the project well, so I'm just going to add a few points rather than repeating what they've already said. I think it's really important that we have some housing in our city that is with preference for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because at this point in time, we have no such units. I also am excited about the project because it's an inclusive project. It will have people with developmental and intellectual disabilities, but it will also have other people from the general public who need affordable housing. I think the project is novel. I'm amazed at what Oren and the city planners and all of our collaborators have come up with. I think it's a wonderful project, and I would like to encourage you to move forward with the next steps as described in the staff's report. As many of you know, I've been trying to find a way to generate set-asides for people with IDD in Cupertino for over 20 years. I have appreciated the support of countless Cupertinians who would also like to see a project like this come to fruition. These next steps are very exciting indeed, and we will be grateful to you if the end result is that we've paved the way to make this all happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Our next speaker is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. I support this project. I have a few requests. This is public land, and so there should be in your contracts or RFPs no market rate. Absolutely. Also, not 55 years, but forever. This land was public land and it's supposed to be forever. So the housing should be forever. Also, Cupertino residents should have priority, as Jennifer Griffin and others specified. Janet Van Zoren mentioned something about preference for ELI, but there's going to be affordable housing. I'm confused about how much of it and what the percentage is. So I'd like that discussed. And also I would like to know who manages and maintains this housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peggy. And Peggy, you're the last hand that was raised before our first speaker concluded speaking. I'm going to go ahead and call on one more hand here. That's Kathy Robinson. I'll go ahead and preface this and encapsulate it into my own comments. So Kathy was very much integrally involved in the Veranda project, and so I would like to hear from Kathy. So welcome, and if you're speaking on behalf of an entity as well, please feel free to disclose that. Welcome, Kathy. And Kathy, okay, you're unmuted now. Welcome.
Sorry, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am Kathy Robinson with Charities Housing. I just want to add a couple of words to the other comments that were made this evening. This has been a great collaborative process with a Rotary and the city and Housing Choices Coalition. And we really hope that we can bring some very high quality, affordable housing to the city again, as we did with the Veranda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathy. And so let me bring it to council at this time. Would anyone like to speak on this item initially? I don't see hands raised. I will share some initial thoughts. But I do see Councilmember Moore with your hand raised, as well as Councilmember Willie. So my initial thought is that this has been a very long time coming in Cupertino. I see members of the public that were speaking that have been dedicated on this for years and years. And with my own involvement, I've seen a number of developments being discussed as potential sites for inclusionary zoning along these lines. ELI is not a formal designation recognized by the RENA allocations, and so it's a particularly challenging type of housing to navigate and deliver. And so personally, I'm really glad to see that this has come to us at this point. And it has been a fairly long time germinating. But I also welcome the council discussion on this. I think that we always have some really insightful comments and observations that get incorporated into what ultimately gets delivered. So let me go ahead and turn this to Councilmember Moore, followed by Councilmember Willie, and Vice Mayor Chow has a hand raised as well. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So when I look at the city work program for item 2, it is to consider options to develop ELI and BMR housing units for developmentally disabled individuals on city-owned property along Mary Avenue, as well as the Outback Steakhouse location. So when this project was first mentioned, it was prior to Supervisor Simidian coming to council and letting us know about the purchase of the Outback property. And then since then, we've also had another property owner, the Simeon property at the north end of the Valco site, which I think is around 5 acres, also be offered as an exchange for the Outback property. And that offers even greater opportunities for ELI, very low income, potentially even RV area parking, all sorts of things. There are a lot of options there. So I'm concerned that this has gotten ahead of our actual selection and adoption of the city work program, which we are in process of creating our priorities, ranking them. And then I also am concerned that we've now taken our actual council-derived work program and somehow split item 2 in parts, and which does not seem to be in keeping with what we were discussing for this item. So process-wise, I'm concerned about it. And I would also like to mention that we have some other properties that we need to figure out the disposition of, Bern, Stocklemeyer, Bletch. So we have some other areas within the city that to work with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So thank you, John, for a good update for us. I'll start off with some comments. You know, once elected and sworn in, Orrin Mahoney very quickly thereafter contacted me to talk about this Mary Avenue project, which I had heard nothing, known nothing about. So it really was quite some time ago, you know, 3 years ago. And so I want to kind of put that out there because, you know, I'd really like to see us moving this along as fast as possible. That's pretty much the motivation of why it then got on the work plan. Because without it being on the work plan, it's going to only be moving along at the same pace as typical projects. And by putting it on the work plan, you know, I feel we have some push to move this along. In hindsight, we haven't had much. I've asked about it regularly. What's the status? How can we make it go faster? I do realize that there are a few limiting factors. You know, the drawings that Orrin showed us tonight, you know, they're artist renderings. And in order to truly move along, you're going to need final construction type drawings. So the point I'd like to leave us all with is that I would really like to see us move this along as fast as possible. You know, let the Rotary know that, you know, as fast as they can move this along, I would hope that the city is going to make sure every time they have something, every time the city has something in their ballpark to do, you know, they act on it right away to keep this thing moving right along. And I want to do a shout out to Orrin and the Rotary for, you know, making sure that it's covering all the bases with charities, housing, and housing choices, because the adults with intellectual disabilities do need supportive services, and it sounds like those are in fact going to be integral to this project and part of it. So no real questions other than let's move this along and see it come to fruition as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, this actually, the conversation started even before I got on the council. And then I thought it has been on the work program for every year, and we have not had it on the council agenda at all. So I'm glad to finally see it on the agenda, and then we can discuss the next step. I did not realize how small the property is. I wonder the feasibility of building there, but I'm glad that Charities Housing is here, and then I hope to know that some affordable housing developer could confirm that it's feasible to build here. And I also wonder, we have the Mary Avenue Dog Park there. How much is the usage of that part? Since we are opening up a dog off-leash park elsewhere, if there is not much use of this dog park, maybe one of the next steps should also consider expanding to include the dog park so that we can build more units. And another thing I'm concerned is the staff report is a little vague on the RFP will specifically mention that the property should be for intellectually and developmentally disabled people and extremely low income. Except in the title of the work program, this was not really mentioned. So we want to be sure the RFP mentioned that, and I also am curious how many units is possible, what's percentage that will be ELI, and what percentage will be other income level, and is it possible so that there is no 50-year limit on this city-owned property? What would be the legal restrictions or requirement we need to doing so that it could be forever BMR within the city's control? And also the legislators who spoke to us a few meetings ago said there is a chance to apply for infrastructure funding this year from the state. Could we possibly apply for funding using this project? That would be great. Yeah, thank you. And have we notified the neighbors? I think we should notify the neighbors that this project is being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Well, Vice Mayor Chow, given that you had a question that seemed to be for the city attorney in terms of length of time, or at least someone from planning, does anyone from staff care to address that question? It was not just asked by Vice Mayor Chow, but I think another speaker previously. And are we limited to a particular duration? I think, Chris, is that Mr. City Attorney?
So we will be issuing an RFP, so we are allowed to set the requirements of the RFP. The other thing to be mindful of is we've at least conceptually discussed the property as a ground lease, which would give us contractual control over the use of the property as well as land use control. And it's spelled out more clearly. That means that we could include affordability requirements in a ground lease, and the term of that lease could be up to 99 years. At which point the land would revert to the city.
Okay, and what's magical about the 99-year mark, Chris, in terms of?
That's the longest we can lease city property under the government code.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go on. I do see, and would staff like to follow up or comment on anything else that they've heard from the council member comments up to this point? I think Vice Mayor Chow had a couple of other questions about, one was about notice to the neighbors, and there were other comments from other council members. I'll go by hands if anyone from staff cares to speak on these items. If not, I'll go ahead. Oh, Director Fu, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me take a stab on some of these questions. And just to kind of follow up on Mr. City Attorney's response, I think that's appropriate, that's accurate. And just a reminder that a veranda is 55 years, and sometimes depending on the regulatory terms for the funding source, that might have some requirements on the length of time. But in terms of noticing, we fully intend on noticing the process to the neighbors. Of course, we're required to do that, and we always often go above and beyond what the minimum requirements are in the code. What we're here today, obviously, is looking for any additional direction or input the council may have. For example, identifying specifically, just to confirm this is for developmentally disabled. That will help us with the language for RFQ and RFP. So some of those things, if council can help us clarify, we'll certainly move forward with that. Item has been in discussion. I know we talked to Oren's group 2019, I believe, just an initial reach out from the group to talk about feasibility of the project, something like that. That kind of initiated the discussion, and this is where we are now. There's a lot of legwork that occurred behind the scenes, mostly from the support from the Public Works Department to set up the property, the parcel as it is now, so that we can actually have a parcel to proceed. And so at this point, we're looking for council direction, how you want to see this being designated, and we can proceed with that very quickly as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Fu. Let's go on to Council Member Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. First, I want to thank the staff to move this forward. Like Councilmember Willie says, this is right time to go for it. There are a lot of details to work out, but I believe our staff is very familiar with it, and we're informing the staff, our council, step by step. So I really very happy, and just want to ditto what Councilmember Willie says. Let's get it going.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Way. And let's go back to Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Paul. I was wondering if staff could put up a cross-section showing what the new street alignment would be like compared to existing.
We don't have the cross-section developed at this point.
And Mr. Martyr, if you wouldn't mind, I do have a plan view that kind of shows a real rough breakdown. This is real rough. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Do you see my screen here?
Yes.
This is a real rough breakdown. This parcel size requires reconstruction of the curb and gutter on the east side, so keep that in mind. Comes with about a 5.5 foot sidewalk that provides a 6-inch gap between the back of the walk and the property line for future maintenance work. We have a 5-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer, 2 11-foot lanes north and south, an 8-foot parking section, a 3-foot buffer, the bike lane on the inside to protect bikers, and another 5-foot sidewalk. This is kind of a bare minimum right-of-way width, but this is what we had come up with. We think it, and again, it's real rough. There's some flexibility in this, but we wanted to make sure we had adequate travel lanes as well as bike lanes with some safety in there with the buffers.
Okay, thank you, Chad. So there had been a report that came to the Planning Commission and I believe also to City Council, the GSI plan for Mary Avenue and the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Plan. And that happened a couple of years ago. So I'm 2 parts. I'm wondering why we haven't had any more updates on that recently. But does that mean that that plan is we're not going to do that at all then?
So if I recall, this was brought to City Council a number of years ago and the project wasn't accepted by Council. So it was kind of put on the back burner, and, you know, we also had Council looking at this option. So most likely if we were to proceed with this parcelization, the green infrastructure or complete street for Mary Avenue would probably go away. There would not be adequate right-of-way to make that happen.
Okay, and could you pull up the rough plan that you had and indicate where the existing curbs are and what kind of a setback you're expecting in the 38 foot area?
Chad, you're muted.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute there. Here is the proposed curb. And you can see this light gray line is the existing curb on the east side. It's a couple of feet back. When you look at the west side, the existing curb line is here. And
okay.
Their parallel parking is in this area. With respect to setbacks for the buildings, it would be however the developer designs the site. I am not evaluated setbacks. I've just created the maximum parcel I could for this site while ensuring public access in the road, multimodal access in the roadway.
Okay, and so the parking is removed on the, I guess it would be the east side of the street. I'm seeing you've got a very narrow parking lane of only 8 feet. So when somebody opens the door, you can be careful with the car driving by, that kind of thing.
That's 8 foot's typical for parallel parking.
Okay. And then probably these trees along the freeway are going to have to be removed, I'm going to guess. Do you have
at this point in time, it depends on how they would develop it. They may be able to keep them in as backyard areas, but again, that would be upon the developer to come up with a plan there.
Okay. And what about, because this is surplus land, what about the city's, just a side note, there are a lot of utilities in there apparently. So what about the city's ability to impose setback requirements or just where's the sound wall exactly? Okay, so it's even further back. Okay, so could you guesstimate that distance to the sound wall from the property line? It looks
If I
like.
recall, it's about 6.5 feet.
Okay. Okay. So now, would it be the city deciding if you were going to allow a zero lot line on the property line? Like how did the rules come about for what the front yard setback and the rear yard setback for what those would be for this project?
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, depending on the proposal, again, we're anticipating this be a planned development zone. So as you recall, council has reviewed a couple of different projects this past year where there's a planned development zone where we can coordinate with the developer and look at what's appropriate in terms of setback. It depends on the proposal. Depends on what comes back for the request for proposals and what the development looks like. I'm sure as a developer, they want to make sure there's adequate standard of living and provide the adequate buffer from the units from the freeway. They want to be able to make sure the residents are comfortable, so they'll have to accommodate something. But the planned development zone gives the city that flexibility in looking at setbacks.
And these units are really going to be absorbing the sound from the freeway and in some ways acting as a further sound wall for the apartments. But having lived in Glenbrook on the freeway facing side, it is very loud in that area. I'm confused why the staff report says building 6 to 8 affordable ownership townhomes, yet the report on what from the public was that it would be many more units. And could you explain why there is this difference?
I could try to answer that one. That was a language from the original council work program back in 2019. So that, again, the council work program that dealt with the development of the structure of housing for development disabled populations has evolved over the last few years. So there wasn't a hard number placed on that anymore. Whereas right now it's open.
Okay, and why is the Outback property not being discussed and Simeon as well? It was my understanding that we were going to have a conversation about at least the two options, but now this item has somehow jumped ahead of our work plan prioritization and been bifurcated.
Sure,
that happen?
Yeah, of course, Councilmember Moore. Let me try to attempt to address that. You're correct. I mean, this item sort of has evolved over the years to where you see now. The difference is that the other properties are private property, not city property. This piece of parcel here is city property, so we're able to sort of control our pace in our review process. So we want to just make sure that the focus on the Mare Avenue gets the continued progression to review and approval process. And because the county was involved in the other parcel, we're still waiting for the county to provide us an update so we can bring that item back to council for information.
Okay, so another issue to throw in there is that we own the burn property. Were we to sell the burn property, the city owns it. We could purchase another piece of property in a location that's not right up against the freeway wall, and perhaps end up with a better end result. And additionally, the Bletch property, you could actually, even with it being in the flood zone, put the uninhabitable area on the ground floor and the habitable area above. So it's not a complete non-starter that it's in the flood zone. It's just how you develop there, because there are residential homes in that floodplain. Just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Okay, great. I will ask for a motion at this time. And just on a matter of time tracking, I wanted to make sure we had a fulsome discussion, but Councilmember Moore, your allocation did go quite far-ranging, so you're at about 9 minutes, and the rest of us, Vice Mayor Chow, you have the most next to that at about 4. So Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised. So let me go to you and then Councilmember Way. But let me initiate that by asking Vice Mayor Chow whether you have a motion to set forth for our further deliberation at this time.
So I'd like to So I'll make a motion to give to for the staff to initiate the RFP for this property, specifically pointing out that we would like the project to be developed for intellectually and developmentally disabled population. Do we need any more details?
Well, let me refer that to staff. So staff, I noticed that in the presentation, the next steps states that upon direction from City Council, an RFQ process would be initiated for qualified affordable housing developers. But I did notice a number of other issues that were brought up during the staff presentation. So what is the recommended action here that's actionable? Because I think the agenda doesn't necessarily give us, additional guidance on top of that, because it simply says something to the effect of, seek direction from City Council. So, with these various issues and steps, would it be useful for us to have this motion here as further direction, or would we simply in a more basic fashion ask staff to come back with the general principle, outlined here, with more details as to, further follow-up steps? And I see our city manager has a hand raised, so let me bring it to Jim at this point to address that question.
Oh, thank you, Mayor and Council, and Ben or John, step in if I say wrong. But I believe tonight was to ask Council, if we were able to answer all your questions, to suggest we go forward with an RFQ and get it out there into the public and whatnot. So we're hoping that all of the questions were answered, or at least as best as possible, and that if it was the council's decision to say, yes, we want to move forward and look at the RFQ, see who responds, and then we can come back to council at that time at a later date.
Okay, well, that does sound like the Vice Mayor's motion. And so I don't see further hands raised from our city staff. And so I'll go to Councilmember Way, although I did notice that Councilmember Willie shot his hand right up when Vice Mayor Chow made the motion. Councilmember Way, did you have a desire for further comment, or did you want a second? I will note that it may have been a colleague of yours who had that desire as well. So maybe you guys can.
I'll let Councilmember Willie second it.
Councilmember Willie, did you want to second the motion?
I'll let Councilman Way second it. I had a comment.
Okay, great. All right, so well, do either of you want to second this?
I'll second it, and I have a comment, but John can make comment first.
Okay, great. Thanks, Councilmember Wood. Councilmember Willie.
Okay, so I really like some of the comments from Councilman Moore. Tossing out that idea about, these other properties that we have that maybe could be sold and that we buy. Oh, great ideas, great ideas. I would just be the frame of mind, though, that I don't see it as being it has to be this or that. I would be thinking, let's do as much as we possibly can. I do share the concern about the noise being right up against the freeway, but when Orrin brought this to me, way back in early 19, that was a concern. But I feel confident that they have looked at that and how it would impact and where they would do the window placements, what type of planting they might be able to do. I want to leave that really to them. They're sold. The Rotary is sold on that this can be a viable project. If something came up later on that said, oh, all this work and it doesn't pan out, I'm fine with that. But I think we should be going as fast as we can on this one. And now with these thoughts from Councilman Moore, by all means, if that made sense, let's add another work plan item to explore those with what options there would be. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you for the additional thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Woolley. Next, we have Councilmember Way.
Okay, Councilmember Willie, you almost took all my comments. So I really think it's not better or worse. We could go ahead with more affordable housing units and to accommodate it. We need that on our housing elements anyway. And as for being very adjacent to the freeway, actually we have a lot of housing, even single family homes that right adjacent to the freeway. With modern technology design, I do think we can make that work. So I do want to ditto what Councilmember Willie says. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Way. Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised.
Yeah, so I had 3 questions, I guess. First 2 are the ones I mentioned earlier. I hope to still get feedback or comments. What's the estimation on the number of units and the percentage that could actually be EO? I couldn't find that in the staff report.
Yeah,
I know it'll be estimate. Yeah, it will be depending on the proposal.
I apologize, Vice Mayor. Mr. Mayor, may I very quickly respond? Yeah, I think Vice Mayor, you're correct. It depending on the proposal. But if council has a percentage in mind that you want to be included as part of the RFP, that's fine. If you want to say it to be all development disabled, that's fine. If you want, it's entirely up to you how you want to set the parameters of the proposal. And then depending on what the project's actually being submitted, then we'll be able to know what that project looks like.
But do we know how many units it can fit?
Yeah, so we spoke to a couple of reputable regional affordable housing developers. We also have a couple of licensed architects in the city staff. You know, I practiced a few years myself as well. So I think for this particular use and what we're hearing from the public is that it's such a needed use area of support that they can make it work. However, the size, obviously, if we're looking at 10-foot depth, that's not workable, right? But so for 38 feet, what we're hearing back is that's something that programmatically they can make that work. And we've seen at least one potential proposal tonight, looking at I believe it's 40 units. But again, it depends on the programmatic designs. You could accommodate more or less.
So in RFP, is it better to not limit or maybe provide, say, a 50% for ELI, so we have a target?
If I may, Vice Mayor, I mean, we could do 100% ELI, and that's up to the council as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the
We don't want to set that and then we didn't get any proposal.
Sure, but I think that was the intent of the work program, was this to be 100% development disabled, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, of the council when this work item was crafted. So and that's definitely up to you to
Okay.
guide us on that
So
suggestion.
the second question is the dog park. How big is the dog park? Would including the dog park allow us to add more units?
I will let that Public Works to address, but I don't think that was part of the work program was to take out the dog park, because I think it is a
Yeah, you can respond to me later. I just thought we have more other locations for dog park, so maybe that could be considered, but yeah, not for right now. And then another thing is, for this RFP, would a commitment of certain amount of city funding make it more attractive?
So we do the city. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, through Mr. Mayor Benford, Director of Community Development. The city does have a notice of funding that we issue on I believe biannual basis, but we have the flexibility to issue that when projects come live. They're shovel-ready projects, and it does have a limitation on we have a limited amount of money in that particular fund. So if a project is received and approved for this process, the developer can consider filing for the acceptance of that particular funding. But I know Mr. City Manager has his hand up as well.
Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine was actually going back to the dog park. I don't have the numbers. It's more anecdotal, but it's the dog park over there does have quite extensive use to it. I just want to point that out. So.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Let's go on to Councilmember Moore at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I just wanted to remind people when we're talking about the dog park, to my recollection, it had lead contamination, which needed a few $100,000 worth of remediation back in 2011. And it's probably, I'm going to assume, due to its proximity near the freeway, it could be. So I'm wondering if there is contamination found that does need to be mitigated, who is responsible for that? Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Moore. And so I do see Director Fu has a hand raised. Did you want to speak to cleanup issues, Director Fu, and who would be responsible for footing that bill? I see your hand is no longer raised. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, I pressed the wrong button. I meant to unmute. Apologize,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I actually raised my hand for a different follow-up, but I will answer this question first. Yeah, I believe it would be the responsibility of the developer for any sort of on-site cleanup. But to sort of piggyback to what Vice Mayor had mentioned before in terms of whether to limit just developmentally disabled or not, there might be some funding mechanisms to a project like this where a mixture of affordability will allow them better funding sources or better choices. But it's entirely up to the council if you want to limit just to developmentally disabled. But county does have, I believe, Measure A funds or something like that allows for BMR units. So something to consider as you ponder the percentage.
Thank you, Director Fu. Presumably, I think staff would be guided by, pragmatic realities in terms of, the mix of affordability that would be needed in order to deliver the project itself. So, to the extent that information is not perfect here in terms of what could be vetted further, I would support you looking into that and advising us, after that has been examined. I don't know if 100%, ELI is going to qualify for funding or a different mix, such as 50% ELI and, other levels of affordability are something that would be perhaps a little bit more feasible to deliver, or even if it's not like that, preclusive to delivery. So I don't think we should be qualitative about our discussion in that regard. We really just need hard facts in terms of what the market looks like. So Councilmember Way, again, followed by Councilmember Moore.
Yes, so follow up with this discussion, Mayor Paul, I'd like to make an amendment to our motion to add to at least 50% ELI.
Okay.
So make it open.
Yeah, so that's Vice Mayor Chow's motion. So Vice Mayor Chow, would you accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion?
So can I ask, I think Ben mentioned some funding this might preclude some funding sources. So would 50% preclude us from certain funding sources?
That level specificity, I'm not sure. I just know that county does have funding for below market rate units, affordable units, and I don't know if a strictly 100% developmentally disabled project will be precluded for those kind of funding. Just if we want to leave it open enough where projects can seek out additional funding types to be considered.
So could we say preferably 50% or more ELI units? That way it's not exclusive.
Yeah, no, that's the request of
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, Vice Mayor, that is the request of your friendly amendment. And you do have a couple of responses from Director Fu right now that, in terms of the precise, mixture. There's not 100% certainty on staff at this point, but that's the suggestion. 50% ELI. So you are accepting that as a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
And Councilmember Way, I assume as the seconder and the provider of the friendly amendment, you're okay with it. And you're nodding, but if you could just vocalize your.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Paul.
Great, thanks very much. All right, Councilmember Moore, you have your hand raised, and then I will try to get us wrapped to a vote after this. So Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I actually wish that we had the soils reports from back in 2011 to have some sense of the lead contamination. There's a quote from the old 2011 article, and to my knowledge, lead does not dissipate over time. It's saying the amount of lead discovered in the site seems to be a bit higher than what we would have expected for its location. It's airborne lead and it's in the soil itself. In some cases, it's 18 inches or 2 feet deep, end quote. So that's the dog park site. And I remember this being in the news before. With regards to this project, is the city taking on all of the right-of-way changes and improvements? And if the one part, and then with regards to the utilities needing to be located in the property, who is going to be paying for that? I'm going to assume the developer. Well, we'll just start with that. And are we giving the land away for free? Are we going to receive any compensation for this? Okay, would anyone from staff care to speak to Councilmember Moore's questions and comments? Assistant Director Mosley, you have your microphone on.
Yeah, I could answer some of those questions. With respect to the cost for any of the development, it would be covered by the developer. Whether that's street improvements, whether it's removal of lead deposits, all of that would be required as part of the development. With the RFI process, we would be providing as much information as possible, including information that we have from past studies, such as what we had for the dog park, including information on the lead for that. I think to a certain extent, much of that area is covered by asphalt. So I'm not sure when that asphalt was installed, but probably quite some time ago. That may have minimized some of the area from being contaminated with aerial lead, because the aerial lead is coming from cars back when we used to use the leaded fuel. Highway 85 did come in at a later date, but I know that one section of 85 from Stevens Creek to 280 has been there for a while. I don't know what those contamination lead levels would be underneath the asphalt, but I think they could be quite a bit lower. With respect to, what was the other question you had? The utilities. And again, the utilities would be relocated by the developer. There's currently, to the best of my knowledge, a street light and fiber optic. And I believe there's a section of potentially sewer and PG&E to the north, but it doesn't extend the whole way down. Okay, so let me repeat back what I think I heard. So the developer is going to be responsible for all of the street improvements, that the changing the curb, the building the new sidewalk, moving the utilities, and if there's lead contamination in the soil, because there is a significant amount of exposed soil still in existence between the curb and the wall, the developer is going to be taking that on as well. And the last part is, are we giving them the property for free? What I think was the last part. I'm not sure that I got that part answered. I may let the city manager speak to this, but I believe the intent would be to lease the property out at an extremely low rate for potentially up to a period of 99 years.
Great. Let's go to Jim, our city manager. Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that would be the intent would be to do the 99-year lease, and then in 99 years we can look at that possibility again. The other one too, I was also going to speak on, is the requirement. It may be better to do the requirement of 100% affordable with preference to the developmentally disabled, and make that project such, just as a recommendation to council. We're hearing that from our housing.
Can you repeat that, Jim?
Yes, sorry, Mayor, that it may be better to require 100% affordable with preference for developmentally disabled housing.
Okay, 100% affordable. And where is that being driven from?
That's in my offline discussion with Carrie. She's the same who's in our housing, that it would be best for that.
I'm sorry, with Carrie? With Carrie Husler?
Yes.
Okay.
For housing.
So, I mean, is she looking at this from a funding, or, you know, what kind of perspective is that coming from?
Yeah, I'm so sorry if I can jump in. Let me speak to it a little bit while Carrie's getting her machine rebooted here. But yeah, so I think the housing division is looking at this from a funding source flexibility for these type of projects.
Okay.
And I think Carrie's back on. If Carrie, you have any more to detailed recommendation or explanation to this.
Well, I mean, I guess my concern is if it's specifically for ELI, developmentally disabled, I mean, to kind of give a hedge for just 100% affordability, I mean, we have to balance out the factors, right? I mean, I understand why it would be more fundable, but, you know, I don't know whether it would be desirable with regard to the aim of the item itself. So I did see Carrie as well. Carrie, did you want to speak to that? I mean, in terms of the recommendation that we make it 100% affordable in the RFP with a so-called preference for ELI.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My understanding is that for the surplus land piece, it would need to be 100% affordable. And I know John Martier can speak to that further. In terms of funding, I understand that there might be some feasibility issues with restricting to extremely low income or limiting funding sources such as Measure A. And so if we put in our preferences for developmentally disabled and we allow for tax credits in Measure A and all of the different layers to come in, it might make for a strong project that crosses the finish line.
Okay, and Carrie, would you say that given the benefit of more time, you could go into the industry and give more, you know, more research advice on this, or do you think that would basically be the bottom line on this, irrespective of, you know, whether we talk about it now or whether we talk about it in, say, 2 or 3 weeks?
From my understanding of participation from Jan Stokley this evening from Housing Choices, there was a input on putting preferences in, and I think that will give us a strong review marker for the RFQ. I don't think any further research on the funding sources would actually help at this time because it all depends on what's available when the project breaks ground.
I see. I appreciate that. And, you know, I do notice that there are 2 members of the public with their hands raised. You know, we have Oren as well as Jan Van Zoren. Jan Stokley's still there. I would like to refer this since I know Jan's been heavily involved and she did mention 24, you know, sites in the county. So Jan, I'm going to go and unmute your microphone. Can you speak to this as well? I mean, is that consistent with your understanding of the funding requirements that, as described, 100% affordable with a preference for ELI, developmentally disabled housing, would be the best way to couch this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Carrie. Based on experience with other projects, developers have to look at available financing programs at the time. So I think a project, if you tell developers that you're looking for a project that's 100% affordable housing and that you'll score projects based on the degree to which they provide housing for extremely low income people with developmental disabilities, then you're going to get, you know, more ability of developers to work with the financing programs that are available at the time. And I'm sure Kathy Robinson can speak to that as well. But I think 100% affordable project, but you're going to score the developer's proposal based on their responsiveness to your priority, which is to create inclusive housing with units that are affordable to people with extremely low income and developmental disabilities. Then you'll let the developers tell you what is financially feasible. We're really hoping to have at least 20 ELI units for developmental disabilities. There's so many adults that we're working with now who have to move out of Cupertino. So we want to see at least 20, but I think you could frame it in terms of your scoring of proposals based on the extent to which the proposal addresses your priority regarding number of units that are affordable at the ELI level for people with developmental disabilities.
Understood. Well, thank you, Jan. I'm going to go ahead and I'll call on briefly the members of the public as well, Oren and Janet. If you have anything to add that could be of use in that regard, and please be succinct. Oren? And you'll need to unmute your microphone if you want to speak to this, Oren.
Yeah, Jan covered a lot of it very well. They're two separate issues. What percentage is for IDD people? What percentage is ELI? Please keep it as flexible as possible. I have been on a phone with Kathy, who's the expert in how these things get financed. And we don't want the perfect to get in the way of the enemy to be the enemy of the good, as they say. So I'd rather have a project with 15 people that can, meet that criteria than one that says it's going to have 20 and a project doesn't get made. So, give us the flexibility. We're, as we all say, we're in the early stages of this. We were just waiting for you guys to go ahead so we could put some more time, effort, and dollars into this. And, it's got to be affordable to meet as you've heard, the surplus land thing. And above and beyond that, preferences are good words, and then whoever comes in with the best proposal wins.
Okay, well, thank you, Oren. And I don't want commentary to be the enemy of being able to apply. So with Jan, I think that's fine. But with Kathy, I just want to be adherent to the idea of not disqualifying any organization from applying for this. So Janet Van Zoren, did you want to speak to this? We'll let you have last word from the public on it.
Yes, I agree fully with what Oren and Jan said, but there's another factor that we have to consider. And that is we've given a lot of thought to whether or not this should be a project that is exclusively for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And the answer to that question is no. We very much want this to be a diverse project. And there are a lot of reasons for that I won't go into right now. But one problem that we will run into if this is exclusively IDD is that we will begin having trouble with getting services because there's something called the Olmsted Law or ruling that is coming into play here. And if we have a project that's exclusively for people with developmental disabilities, we will have issues getting appropriate services for those individuals.
Okay, well, I'm hearing you, and thank you very much, Janet. I do have one more member of the public, and it's not someone I think is interested in, from an organization or financial perspective in these builds. So let me go ahead. Jenny, I assume that's Jennifer Griffin. Did you want to speak very briefly on this item?
Yes, I did. I understand the setting a precedent because you don't normally do this, but I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in, and I will be very, very brief. Regardless of what's going on, I'm very familiar with the long intent to try to provide housing in these sites. It goes back 14 years. I think we should push. We've been promising the handicapped people with developmental that we would provide housing for them. We need to push for that. If the city has to do it themselves, we need to give these people homes. It should be for them. There are other places for other people. But I think that the developmentally handicapped people of this type, I'm sorry if I said it wrong, I'm very, very much convinced that they need a home. And if it cannot be done by the county or the state, we will do it ourselves. I am tired of having this conversation.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
These people cannot be provided housing. We will do it ourselves.
Thanks very much. All right, so let's go ahead and bring this back. Vice Mayor Chow, I'm going to ask that you modify your motion to make it 100% affordable with a preference for ELI units, and to provide flexibility to the staff members compiling the RFP and RFQ to optimize our chances of having a successful project here. Would you be willing to accept that friendly amendment?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Way, I see you're nodding your head, but can you vocalize?
I accept.
Great. Okay, Councilmember Way, your hand is raised. Did you want to speak before I call for a roll call vote? Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote on the motion that's on the table at this time?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye. Mayor
Paul?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. And thank you very much for members of the public. Mr. City Manager Troop, I see your hand is raised. Let me get to you before we take a 5-minute break. And I imagine you're probably going to ask that we take item 15 next. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor. That would be the if I could have the indulgence of the council, yes.
So item 15 is our housing element item. Typically, we would have taken this before, under orders of the day. But given that the request is from the city manager, do I hear a motion to move item 15 to going before item number 11? Councilmember Moore?
I move that we reorder, so item 15 is ahead of item 11.
Okay, Councilmember Way, do you second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let's go ahead. I don't see further hands raised at this point. Councilmember Moore, your hand is raised. Did you want to make a comment on the motion?
Yes, I would also ask that item 15 only, because we've seen the bulk of this information already last year, that the staff report be shortened to just provide the updates, any changes from last year, because we've all had time to read the report and to be mindful of that and help us move on to our next items.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Councilmember Moore. And I'll take that as just further clarification of your motion, unless you wanted to explicitly change it in that regard. No, you're shaking your head, so
I think staff can follow along with that and understand the spirit of the request.
Take that under advisement. Okay, great. So no further hands raised. Let us go ahead and vote on this motion to place item 15 next, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thanks very much. It is now 8:53. We will reconvene here at 8:59 with the meeting. Thanks for, we'll see you then.